Speak. Speak. How do you know about Feather God Wings? The Feather God Wings is our Yu clan's highest secret. Only our clan elders know about it. How did you know about it? The sect leader of the Yu clan asked heavily. Long Fei waved his hand as if he did not want to bother with the sect leader at all. Instead, he looked at Yu Fei and asked, You said that you want me to help your Yu clan, but what is the danger that your Yu clan is facing? Is it the Raptor sect? Where are you? Bring me there. Yu Fei was startled. The eyes of the elders darkened. The great clan elder immediately jumped out and said, He is Raptor sect's spy. He wants to report to Raptor sect. As soon as he finished, the entire hall was in an uproar. The few disciples at the entrance instantly became cautious. Kid. Speak, are you a spy for Raptor sect? Did Zhong Mengqin send you? Your Raptor sect is really sinister. Many elders rushed forward. Long Fei didn't pay any attention to him. He was still looking at Yu Fei, waiting for his answer. He was the publisher of the mission. Long Fei did not need to listen to others, he only needed to complete the mission according to his instructions, and that would be enough. Yu Fei looked at the elders who surrounded him, and then looked at Long Fei, and said, you. All of a sudden. He panicked as well. He couldn't tell if Long Fei wanted to help him, or if it was really as the elders had said, that he was a spy sent by the Raptor sect. Long Fei was alone in the Great Hall. However, he was not afraid at all. Facing the powerhouse elders whose cultivations were both at the god's holy state, Long Fei remained calm. They were not taken seriously. Young Taoist and Kwong Wang were still playing with Iron Armor Eagle S in the air outside the Great Hall. They were having a lot of fun and did not have any intention of paying any attention to Long Fei's situation. Of course, they were well aware of how dangerous Long Fei was. Sect Master of Yu Clan stepped in front of Long Fei and said, You better make it clear today, otherwise, you won't be able to go anywhere else. Long Fei glanced at him and laughed coldly. Say my ass, I have nothing to say to you. So what if it was the sect leader? Is it very good? Yu Clan sect master's face changed. He had never been insulted like this before and was about to get angry. It was also at this time. A disciple ran in frantically from outside the door. His feet were trembling, and he was even swaying while walking. His face was pale and his lips were trembling as he said, No, not good. Something terrible has happened. Fierce, the people of Raptor sect are coming. As soon as he finished, the main hall suddenly became quiet again. Yu Clan's sect master's eyes turned as he looked at the disciple and asked, How many people are there? That disciple said, No, I don't know. It's a black mass, all of them. I've never seen so many Iron Armor Eagle. An elder jumped out of the hall. The moment he saw the group of Iron Armor Eagle in the distant sky, his expression suddenly changed. His footsteps also trembled as he said, 3,000 Iron Armor Eagle, this Raptor sect has come out in full strength. Master, what should we do? The main hall was in chaos. Long Fei grinned, a crisis has appeared, it should be time for my performance, right? Hee. Long Fei was about to leave the great hall. That elder said in a low voice, We can't let him go. Stop him. The two disciples immediately blocked in front of Long Fei. The elder walked over and said solemnly, Brat, you want to leave now? Too late. Speak. You are the disciple of the elder in Raptor sect. To actually use such a sinister and despicable method to sneak into the Yu clan, all of a sudden. Long Fei had even become the target of public criticism. Everyone stared at him. Yu Fei was also looking at Long Fei. He did not believe that Long Fei was someone from the Raptor sect, but he was even less able to defend Long Fei now. Long Fei shrugged and said, Is there any use in knowing this now? I think you should think about how to deal with the Raptor sect. Of course. You can also let me go alone. Humph. Let you go alone and let you go back. Brat, your imagination is truly beautiful. Do you take us for fools? You actually dared to come to the Yu clan with this kind of cultivation, and have two retainers that look like fools. The Yu clan elders encircled Long Fei so tightly that not even a drop of water could leak out. Long Fei simply sat on the chair and said, Fine, I won't leave, I'll stay here, and after you all die, I'll be fine, as long as I complete the mission. Mission? What mission? Kid, what other tasks do you have? Feather God wings. The few clan elders glared at Long Fei furiously. The sect master of the Yu clan said loudly, Elders, the raptor sect's army is pressing down, the most pressing matter at hand is how to retaliate. With such a formation, the raptor sect was definitely not here to play around. They would definitely fight to the death with the Yu clan. How to punish Long Fei at this time wasn't that important anymore. I think it's better to reconcile. Raptor sect has his back against the Vitality clan, we are simply not his match, and with the power we have now, even if we are on par with Raptor sect, we will still be the ones to lose in the end. Reconciliation is the only way. Why don't we submit? Facing the Raptor sect's army's suppression, the Yu clan did not have the strength to retaliate. Everyone felt threatened. At this moment, what they wanted to do was not to counterattack, but rather to survive and preserve their lives. After all, the Raptor sect's backing was too strong. The brows of the Yu clan's sect master tightened. He did not think that so many elders would actually come to an agreement, and that there would be someone who would say something like surrender, and the sound was getting stronger and stronger. Submission and reconciliation is the only way. Raptor sect has his back against the Vitality clan. The Vitality clan has its own power, and now that the universal realm is under the control of the Gods tribe, the result of our resistance is that it will disappear forever. You all know what happens when you go against the Gods tribe this year. The Intense Flaming sect, the Tianqing sect, the Four Seas sect, which one of them isn't a top sect? Which one of them wasn't an Overlord-level powerhouse? Which one of them wasn't an Overlord-level sect, but the last one? With their roots uprooted and their clans uprooted, is there still anyone left alive? Right now, the Gods tribe is a powerful force, and no one can resist him for hundreds of millions of years. Isn't it the same now? Sect Master, we should take this opportunity to submit ourselves to him. Only then will we be able to gain a foothold in the universal realm. You're right. This is the only way. God's tribe was too strong, who could contend against him? Long Fei sat there and listened, his heart secretly shaking. God's tribe has already begun to move. I never thought that after I left, the God's tribe would speed up his control. It was also at this time. Pa. Long Fei clapped his hands and stood up. You're right, allegiance is your only way out. I am the Raptor sect and even more so the sect master's disciple. I can talk to them as a messenger of reconciliation. Rest assured, I can definitely guarantee that all of you will be able to survive. You guys just stay here and watch. While they were talking, Long Fei walked out of the hall. At this moment, no one stopped him. Long Fei looked at the black mass of land in the distance, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. He said in a heavy voice, Junior brother, Kwong Wang, get ready to work. Long Fei stepped out of the hall, and shouted towards the sky. Long Fei stepped out of the hall, and shouted towards the sky. Many elders and disciples in the Yu clan palace followed him out in unison. Sect Master, could it be that his releasing the tiger back into the mountain and then joined hands with the Raptor sect's people to deal with us? That's a possibility. The feeling this brat gives me is a little demonic. The Raptor sect's 3,000 godly hawks have pressed down on us. Do we still have a choice? Yu Fei, is this brat really someone from the Raptor sect? Many elders looked at Yu Fei, who had always been defending Long Fei. At this moment, facing the gazes of so many elders, Yu Fei did not know what to say, and said, I only saw him personally kill 3 iron armor eagle, and from start to finish, he did not move an inch. As for whether or not he is a member of the Raptor sect, I also can't say. I just feel that he can help us deal with the Raptor sect, that's why I brought him back. As soon as his words fell, an elder immediately said with disdain, only he can help us. To put it harshly, what is Warrior Realm? He's just a piece of trash. I have to ask, can a trash help our Yu clan? You're right. In this world, strength was what mattered. The cultivation realm was the best way to display one's strength. What could a Warrior Realm beginner warrior do? There was nothing he could do. Yu Fei also did not explain, and said, "I am sure that he is not trash, his strength is something I have never seen before." The sect leader of the Yu clan asked seriously, "If he is not a disciple of the raptor sect, do you think he would help us?" Yu Fei shook his head. "I might be able to in the beginning, but now, I can't say. After all, just a moment ago, everyone thought that Long Fei was a spy, and had said such unpleasant things. If it was him, he wouldn't have helped." The sect leader of Yu clan clenched his fist tightly. The many elders were even more disdainful. "You need his help. What the hell is he? What can he help me with? Who does he think he is? He's just a piece of trash, what else can he do?" Tch. No one thought highly of Long Fei. To say that he could save the Yu clan was something that made those elders feel disdain and displeasure in their hearts. At this moment, Long Fei had already walked to the edge of the plaza, with young Taoist and Rampage standing behind him. It covered the entire sky with iron armor Eagle S and covered the entire sky in a black mass. Long Fei and the other two looked extremely insignificant standing there. "Tianyu, get out here." Rumble. A loud explosion resounded. The iron armor Eagle roared. It released wave after wave of super strong sound attacks, covering the entire Yu clan. Those tamed birds all crawled on the ground, crying out in pain. Many disciples covered their ears with their hands and started scuttling in all directions. Long Fei's ear drums also hurt, as a piece of Daotai beast scale grew out from his ears. Long Fei's eyes flashed with fire. The fiery eyes of truth appeared. At this moment, Long Fei grimaced, and also instantly let out a roar. Ah! Rumble! 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 The thunderous roars directly crushed the sound waves produced by the iron armor eagle. Those iron armor eagle began to tremble one by one as they flew chaotically, avoiding Long Fei's roars non-stop. "Oh oh oh! A woo! A woo! A woo! A woo!" Many of the iron armor eagle let out painful cries, and a few of them directly fell down. Fiery eyes of truth combined with the roar of the Daotai. His strength was off the charts. The faces of the raptor sect disciples all became pale, the pain was unbearable, and they felt like they were about to be engulfed by the sound Long Fei let out. Yu Fei's eyes lit up. The Yu clan's sect master's face was also filled with shock. Many elders of the Yu clan were also shocked, but even more elders were incomparably furious. What does he want to do? Didn't you want to talk about reconciliation with the raptor sect? Does he want our Yu clan to accompany him in death? Is he crazy? A few elders quickly walked over and asked, "Brat, what are you planning to do? Who told you to counterattack? Didn't you want to talk about reconciliation with the raptor sect? If you continue like this, don't blame us for being impolite." Long Fei didn't pay any attention to him. She didn't even look at him. But some people just like to be despicable. The more you ignore them, the more they jump up and down. Seeing Long Fei, she ignored him. The two elders felt even more humiliated as they cursed, "You son of a b****, if you continue." Before he could finish his words, the savage king turned his gaze, and a fierce gaze shot over. Plop! That elder instantly kneeled on the ground like a dead man, not daring to make a single sound. Not daring to even utter a single word, he kneeled on the ground, not daring to move an inch. His body didn't even dare to tremble. At that moment, he saw the savage king as if he was looking at death itself. Long Fei's gaze shifted, and said coldly, "If it wasn't for the mission, you would have died long ago." It sounded like the sound of a death god. If it wasn't a mission, would Long Fei let these people play around in front of him? Another elder looked at Long Fei and the words that he wanted to say was instantly swallowed back. He did not dare to make a single sound. In the sky, Tai Wu pointed at Long Fei and said, "Sect Master, it's him. This is the kid." Zhong Mengqin looked at Long Fei, his gaze gloomy. "Warrior realm? Humph. Lame duck, kill my iron armor eagle. I will take your dog life. Kill them all." Once the word kill was spoken, the many iron armor eagle began to attack. But, at this moment, Zhong Mengqin felt a chill on his back. He looked to the side. Unknowingly, a young Taoist was standing behind him, his gaze tensed up. You, when did you come here? Young Taoist said indifferently. You want to kill my senior brother? Zhong Mengqin looked at Long Fei, then looked at young Taoist. Under his robes, he flipped his right hand, taking advantage of the momentum. He struck towards young Taoist's head with his palm, and shouted, "Little trash, die." He struck out with his palm. Buzz. Crack. His palm struck against a thick wall, his arm felt numb, and the joints of his elbows were dislocated. Zhong Mengqin's face turned pale white, and he screamed in pain. Young Taoist said indifferently, "Explode." Zhong Mengqin shouted, "What?" On the back of the head. A golden rune was stuck to the back of his head. No one knew. Zhong Mengqin didn't know when he had appeared. Young Taoist said lightly, "Boom." Zhong Mengqin's head exploded. Health point instantly bottomed out. There was no resistance at all. There wasn't even a scream. And at this moment, the elders, disciples, and even sect masters of the Yu Clan all had stunned faces. Looking at the young Taoist in the sky, they heavily swallowed their saliva. So fierce. With one move, he killed the Raptor Sect's sect leader. With one move, he killed the Raptor Sect's sect leader. Moreover, the young Taoist didn't even move his hand, and only softly spoke a single word. No matter what, he was still a powerhouse of the god's holy state. Just like that. Is there any law or no reason? It was like an ant that could be stepped on to death at will, but the ants had to be stepped on at least. But when young Taoist did not move his hands, Zhong Mengqin died. Nothing was left of his head. All of the elders and disciples of the Raptor sect were stunned. Many of them rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. Half a minute passed. Only then did an elder let out a cry of alarm. "Sect master, sect master, sect master is dead." The expressions of the 2,999 iron armor eagle disciples went whoosh, and all of them stared at young Taoist with eyes that were filled with anger. Killing intent surged. Anger soared. The disciples of Raptor sect clenched their fists tightly. An elder shouted, "Fight." When his voice fell, the iron armor eagle immediately took battle form. The hearts of some of the elders in the Yu clan sank as they said, "We are finished. It's over, it's all over. He killed the Raptor sect leader. This, our Yu clan, what should we do?" Sect master, once Zhong Mengqin dies, that Vitality clan will definitely not let us off. When the time comes, I'm afraid we'll. Everyone knew that Zhong Mengqin was someone who came from the Vitality clan. Now that he was dead, the Vitality clan would definitely not let him off. So what kind of existence was the Vitality clan? The power of the god's tribe. In other words, the Yu clan had already provoked the power of the god's tribe. Even if he had 10,000 lives, it wouldn't be enough to kill him. Yu Fei said, "Sect leader, take this opportunity when Zhong Mengqin is dead. This is our chance." One of the clan elders immediately shouted, "Yu Fei, do you want to turn Yu clan into an irreparable calamity? Do you want to destroy Yu clan? Do you have a brain? Are we really afraid of Raptor sect? We are afraid of Vitality clan, we are afraid of God's tribe. Have you thought about the consequences?" Yu Fei said, "I don't care what you think, but since he is sick and wants his life, Raptor sect has been riding on our heads for the past year, it's time to take it back." First, it was like he was going to kill his way out. The hall was in an uproar. Long Fei glanced at the great hall, then said to the still kneeling elder, "Return and tell your sect master to calm down a bit, and just watch on the side. Don't be so King noisy, it's very annoying. Go." As though he had received an amnesty, the elder ran over and said everything that Long Fei had said. The faces of the elders darkened. "You think killing Zhong Mengqin is that big of a deal? Since you are so powerful, I shall see how you deal with the Raptor sect's 3,000 iron armor eagle. Let's see how he dies. You don't know how high the heavens are and how deep the earth is. Do you really think that just because Raptor sect is missing a sect master, they will be able to cause chaos? He thinks too much. Let's see how he will die." He was filled with righteous indignation and felt extremely displeased. Yu Fei looked at Long Fei with anxiousness in his heart. He knew how powerful the Raptor sect was. It was not because of the death of Zhong Mengqin that their morale was in chaos. Instead, it was because of the death of Zhong Mengqin that they had the same enemy and became more united, erupting with even more power. 3,000 against 3. Long Fei did not win at all. Yu Fei wanted to go out and help, but Long Fei was too arrogant, many elders were displeased, even the sect master would not agree. However, Long Fei stood in place, not moving at all. The Wild King stood beside him. Rather than saying 3 people against 3,000, it would be better to say 1 person against 3,000. Young Taoist floated in mid-air. Facing the strong iron armor eagle, he only muttered, "I know that all of you are forced, but none of you want them to control you. You yearn for freedom, but you need the sky. Don't worry, it's almost done." In mid-air, he sat down in the lotus position. He recited the words softly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Countless golden runes appeared from his body, and fell off one by one. In an instant, young Taoist stood up and giggled, saying, "It's done," as soon as he finished. When the disciples of Raptor sect saw the golden runes imprinted on their bodies, they swept and deflected them with all their might. They wanted to throw them off, but it was impossible. Thinking about the way the sect had died, their pupils constricted in shock. Young Taoist said indifferently, "Explode. Rumble. Rumble. Rumble." The crazy explosion caused the bodies of the 2,999 Raptor sects to all explode, and they all died in an instant. Their heads were where they had exploded. The beast controlling power built up by the Sea of Consciousness and the Iron Armor Eagle also instantly ruptured. The Iron Armor Eagle let out a free scream, flapped its wings, and rushed into the sky. All of a sudden, 3,000 Iron Armor Eagle flew in the sky. The scene was extremely spectacular. Young Taoist giggled and said, "Fly, fly." In just a minute. The originally black mass now had none. The entire Yu clan was abnormally quiet. It was so quiet that it would cause people to panic. All of them opened their eyes wide, their mouths wide open as they watched the young Taoist slowly descend from the sky. Is he even human? Is that child human? What did he just do? Oh my God, what just happened? Just 3,000 Iron Armor Eagle, just like that. The strongest power in the Raptor sect disappeared just like that. He's definitely not human. All of them looked at young Taoist as if he were a god. They no longer dared to say any words of mockery, and didn't even dare to look at him with contempt. Young Taoist landed beside Long Fei and said, "Senior brother, everything is settled." Long Fei nodded, but his heart became tense. "Hey, the danger has been averted, why haven't we heard about the system beep? Logically speaking, this mission should have already been completed. What about the rewards? Damn. System, are you trying to cheat me?" Long Fei opened the system to take a look and discovered that he had not completed the mission yet. A third of the time had already passed, which meant that Long Fei still had 16 hours to complete the mission. Rub. No reason. Long Fei couldn't understand, so he walked back into the hall to look at Yu Fei and said, "The danger to Yu clan has been resolved." Yu Fei was now incomparably reverent towards Long Fei, and even lowered his body when he spoke. Young Taoist and Rampage King stood behind Long Fei. The elders quickly moved out of the way, lowering their heads, not daring to look directly at him. Yu Fei said, yes, Raptor sect is eliminated." The sect master of the Yu clan bolstered his courage and said, "Raptor sect is destroyed, but the danger to Yu clan is not. What we are afraid of is not Raptor sect, but the Vitality clan, the power of the gods tribe." After which, his body trembled. Scared. Long Fei muttered, "I understand." The threat was still there, and the mission was yet to be completed. The threat was still there, and the mission was yet to be completed. Hearing Yu clan's sect master's words, Long Fei felt relieved in his heart. I was wondering why it was an S-grade mission. So there was actually a Vitality clan behind it. The power of the gods tribe. Perfect. Long Fei did not speak further, and directly asked, "How far is this place from the Vitality clan?" Yu clan's sect master only said that casually. In his heart, he hoped that Long Fei could also casually take care of the Vitality clan, but he knew that it was impossible. She had more Overlord powerhouses than all the disciples in the Raptor sect. Furthermore, he was a power of the Gods tribe, so if he wanted to touch Vitality Clan, he would have to go against the Gods tribe. This was simply impossible, as no one in the universal realm would dare to go against the Gods tribe. The outcome of going against the Gods tribe was death. Sect Master of U Clan said, "Sir, I was just saying casually, please do not take it to heart. Vitality Clan are not something that can be dealt with by one or two people." He had to bow to Long Fei and call him Master. Yu Fei also continued, "Sect Master, whose words are true, the Vitality Clan are extremely strong. There are countless of them just based on Overlord Stronger Man. For you to be able to help us get rid of the Raptor sect, we are already grateful." Long Fei did not want to argue, so he said, "Tell me, where is the Vitality Clan? Don't talk so much nonsense." The power of the Gods tribe. The reason he went back to the universal realm was so that he could rob God's tribe. Let alone the fact that he was a member of the Gods tribe, even his homeland would have to defeat all 18 generations of his ancestors. No one dared to resist the Gods tribe. Long Fei was the first person to resist the Gods tribe. This time, if he could not defeat God's tribe, then he would not be surnamed Long, even though he was still at level 1. Yu Fei looked at the sect leader, then said, "Master, do you really want to go?" Long Fei said, "We must go. Even if I don't have a mission, I still have to go. This old man will see how strong the Gods tribe is right now. In the end, if I can find a sovereign realm powerhouse, I can save myself a lot of trouble." Long Fei had never leveled up. These people's levels were too low. Moreover, what did leveling up mean? It meant that he was now at full health, meaning that he had revived. Even if he had a little bit of HP, he could instantly revive and level up sorrowfully. It was like a bug. To Long Fei, his sadness was equivalent to a level. Kill anyone and you can level up. Thus, Long Fei was not in a rush. Unless he met someone that was extremely powerful and was of a high level, he would not easily level up. Yu Fei said, "All right, then I will bring you there. Let's go." Long Fei did not want to delay time, he did not have much time left. If he was far away from the Vitality Clan, then 16 hours would not be enough for him to travel. Yu Fei glanced at the sect master and bowed deeply. Walking out of the main hall, the idea moved, and the golden griffin flew out. Yu Fei jumped on it and said, "Master, follow me." Young Taoist and Kwong Wang also followed suit and flew up to the 2 armored divine eagles sitting cross-legged in the air. Long Fei also climbed up as his level was too low. It was a bit bitter. "What did you say?" Wild Bird Cliff, Raptor sect's headquarters. An elder's body was trembling. He was the elder in charge of watching over the Raptor sect, and also the last elder of the Raptor sect. He had never thought that the sect master would die in half a day, and the 3,000 iron armor eagle were also gone. To Raptor sect, this was the extermination of their sect. "Say that again." The elders' voices were trembling. The disciple said, "I saw with my own eyes that all 3,000 of the divine eagles are gone. Those senior brother S, elders, and sect master are all dead." Bam! The clan elder slapped the chair hard, causing it to split into pieces. "You clan, just you wait." Instantly, he rode on a iron armor eagle and flew towards the Vitality Clan. He must avenge the sect's destruction. As long as the Vitality Clan's powerhouse made its move, a mere Yu clan would instantly be crushed. Night fell. The task only had 2 hours left. However, fortunately, Long Fei and the other two had made it to the Origin Mountain. Yu Fei said, "Master, the Vitality Clan is in the mountains of Origin Energy." Long Fei said, "All right, there's nothing for you here, you can go back first." Yu Fei replied, "As you wish." He couldn't help Long Fei, and Long Fei also didn't need his help. If he stayed, he would naturally become a burden, although he really wanted to stay and see what would happen later. But he still followed Long Fei's orders and turned to leave. However, he did not go far. Long Fei looked at the Essence Mountain range and said, "Wild King, search." This sort of thing was very easy for the Wild King. His gaze swept across them and he said directly, "On a mountain in the southwest." Long Fei smiled slightly and said, "Let's go." I want to see what kind of influence the God's tribe has. Vitality Clan, Origin Energy Treasure Hall. What? A Bulsh *T Big U clan actually annihilated the Raptor sect? Master, please send someone to destroy U clan. This old man will definitely avenge the sect's destruction. In the main hall, the clan elder of Raptor sect kneeled on the ground. The surrounding area was filled with big bosses of Vitality Clan S, all of whom were high-level elders, and their cultivation were all overlord level, strong to a ridiculous degree. This meeting. Of course, it was not because of the matter of the Raptor sect, but because of an even more important matter. The Grand Master Wu Haotian waved his hand and said, "All right, I understand. I will take care of this matter. You can go now." He was getting impatient. Raptor sect elder said, "Sect Master, U clan is really too arrogant. He clearly knows that Raptor sect is a branch of the Vitality Clan and the Vitality Clan is a power of the God's tribe. He even dares to go against Raptor sect." An elder immediately stood up and shouted, "Are you done yet? You can't even deal with a U clan, and you still have the nerve to come?" Scram. As soon as he finished, a dense chi came from his body and directly blew the Raptor sect elder away, rolling him all the way out of the hall. The main hall quieted down. Wu Hao said, "Elders, there are still 3 days before God's Design Attic's artifact forging ceremony. God's tribe's intention is for us to send out our refining Chief Master S to participate in it and ask us to refine something better than the God's Design Attic. Furthermore, the God's tribe will send people to assist them. Seems like God's tribe is going to make his move. What's there to be cocky about a refining place? Even the God's tribe wouldn't care about it. It's good now, the good days are coming to an end, right? Full cooperation. God's Design Attic has always thought that he was extraordinary and had hidden himself within Secret World. Let's see what he will do this time." All the elders echoed his sentiments. They were currently a force of the God's tribe, so naturally, they would not be at odds with the people who were going against the God's tribe. Zhong Haotian said slightly, "Presbyter of God's tribe thinks highly of us, this time we must do our best, even if we cannot refine anything better than God's Design Attic. When Presbyter of God's tribe gives the order, we will be the first to rush out and kill all of them." As they were discussing, Long Fei was not far from the Great Hall and heard everything clearly, his heart tensing up slightly. "Looks like I have to make a trip to God's Design Attic too. Let's settle the matter here first." Then, Long Fei faced the Great Hall and shouted, "Listen well, your father is here, get the hell out." It was loud. It was loud. Outside the palace, the sound traveled into the palace. The hall immediately quieted down. The hall elder was stunned. "What is this place?" Vitality Clan, Origin Energy Treasure Hall, where the high-level elders discussed and held a meeting, let alone disciples, even elder-level people could not get close, and more so did not dare to make a ruckus here. If someone were to behave atrociously here, then this would be paving the way at the edge of the latrine, not too far from death. Thus, many of the elders thought they had heard wrongly. Just as they were continuing their discussion, there were 3 people standing at the entrance of the hall. An uproar. Dozens of pairs of eyes looked at Long Fei at the same time. It was extremely shocking. An elder asked, "Which peak are you a disciple from? Don't you know this is the Origin Energy Treasure Hall? Leave immediately." Long Fei grinned, looked at the people in the hall, and cursed, "Damn, I thought there was no one inside, but it turns out there's someone. That what? Are there any sovereign realm powerhouses? If you don't, then you can decide for yourselves." Not the. Long Fei was not interested. He had to maintain his level 1 advantage. The many clan elders were stunned, none of them understood what Long Fei was saying. Moreover, only powerhouse of God's tribe would dare to speak like this in front of them, otherwise no one else would. The elder stood up, his eyes darkened, releasing the Overlord Realm's pressure. With a deep voice he said, "Brat, do you know who you are talking to?" As soon as he finished, the pressure came. It directly exploded onto Long Fei's body. It was as if he made Long Fei kneel on the ground. Long Fei's mind sank, and the body of Tauti instantly formed a defensive barrier. He glanced at the elder and said, "Then do you know that you're about to die? You're courting death." The elder was enraged. His eyes widened, and with a flip of his right hand, he sent out a palm strike. The other elders did not move. They only discussed in low voices. Whose disciple is this? Who is this person? Warrior realm? It is impossible for Vitality Clan to accept such trash. He's going to be a dead man soon. Any of the elders present here were all Overlord Stronger Man-s. With a single palm strike, their warrior realm would have directly turned into dregs. However, Long Fei did not move. The Savage King's body slightly jerked as his fist blasted out. Boom! The fist imprint visible to the naked eye blasted out towards the palm attack. The moment the two forces made contact, they instantly exploded. The palm attack shattered. The fist imprints didn't receive any resistance, and still charged forward with unstoppable force. The elder's eyes darkened, a burst of supreme force burst out from his body, turning into an air shield. Both of his palms sank as he flipped them over and shouted, "Essence break! Rumble! Rumble!" A dense palm force surged out, striking towards the fist imprint. However, the moment the two forces clashed, the force of the palm once again shattered. At this time, he no longer had the time to use his attack power, his body sank, and the air shield's defense became even thicker. Ah! The elder roared. Bam! The air shield shattered as the fist imprint pierced through. A hole in the heart. That elder lowered his head to look at his chest, then looked at the Wild King. His body trembled slightly as he turned over to the ground, blood gushing out wildly. The health point above his head also bottomed out in an instant. The entire hall started to panic slightly. The Vitality Clan's sect master suddenly stood up, stared at Long Fei with both eyes, and said solemnly, "Who exactly are you? What are you doing here? Do you know where this is?" An elder from Overlord Realm had been killed just like that, and the power was extremely strong. Long Fei said, "This is a Vitality Clan, right?" The sect master replied, "Since you know that this is the Vitality Clan, then you should know who the backer of this Vitality Clan is." Long Fei said, "Is it God's tribe?" Sect master's eyes turned sinister. Since Long Fei knew that he was from the God's tribe, and had dared to come and assault him, and even killed the elder in front of so many people, then it could be seen that this brat was not an ordinary person. The sect master said solemnly, "If you already know, then you dared to kill my sect's elder. Could it be that you want to go against God's tribe?" Long Fei shrugged and replied casually, "Yes." The sect master asked, "What is it?" Long Fei said, "They want to oppose the God's tribe. What's the matter? Is there a problem?" All of the elders in the hall were stunned. Whoever dared to say such words in public would be tired of living. What is a God's tribe? The God's tribe is the sky. Even the gods of Universal Realm, who controlled everything in the Universal Realm, had no power to contend against them, and no one could go against them. The God's Tribe Palace was a pitilessly powerful existence, and it was even the first powerhouse in history. Who would dare to oppose him? The sect master's pupils slightly constricted as he said coldly, "Brat, it seems like you are tired of living." At this moment, the figures of the two Overlord Realms moved and disappeared. At this moment, the void shattered, suddenly rushing out, the sword stabbed straight towards Long Fei's throat. They arrived quickly. There was no way to defend at all. Overlord Stronger Man's sneak attack was too fast and too strong. However, Long Fei was still motionless. Just as the long sword was about to pierce him, Wild King hammered his hands together, punching one punch at a time. Bang, bang. Blast it down from above. All the bones in his body had been shattered. His body was like a nail that had been pierced heavily into the ground. Black blood spewed out of his mouth madly. He could not hold on for even a second. He died on the spot. Another instant kill. It was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. The entire hall suddenly became silent. Long Fei smiled lightly and said, "Continue." Warrior Realm. There was no pressure, no power to crush. However, it was as if all the Overlord powerhouses in the Great Hall had been crushed by Long Fei alone. It was extremely uncomfortable, as if a death scythe was floating in their minds, and they would die if they moved even a little. The Vitality Clan Lord asked again, "Who exactly are you?" Long Fei shrugged his shoulders, and said, "A person who specializes in killing God's tribe dogs. How preposterous." Boom. The Vitality Clan Lord roared in rage, his robes ripped apart, and a golden light burst out. With a move of his fists, an extremely strong shock wave struck at Kwong Wang. In that instant, he released the power of a peak-level overlord. It was like a thunderclap. Rumble. 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 Attack. The corners of the Savage King's mouth curled up as he laughed in disdain. Then he took a step forward and blasted out a punch. Bam! There was a dull sound. The Vitality Clan's sect master fell to the ground with a thud. He was hammered to the ground in mid-air and smashed to the ground. The Savage King stepped on it and rubbed his nose. His gaze swept across the grand hall and disdainfully said, F***K, so boring. There's not a single person who can fight. Immediately, exerting force with his feet, a cracking sound was heard. Bam! The Vitality Clan's head was crushed, the bloody groove on top of its head revealed the bottom. The sect master of the Vitality Clan died. A punch and a hammer exploded. A punch and a hammer exploded. There was not the slightest bit of sloppiness. The Savage King's power was suddenly thrown into disarray. Long Fei was secretly shocked in his heart as well, glad that he had brought him to the universal realm. What a tiger man. Hee. Long Fei laughed to himself. Those people in the Essence Palace all had expressions of fear on their faces as they stared at the Grand Master. Many of them were trembling in fear, no one dared to step up again. The sect head's cultivation base was higher than them. Since the sect master was dead, how could they be his match? If he went up there, he would be courting death. Long Fei looked at the system, and he still did not complete the mission, and was startled. You haven't killed enough? He looked at the time again. There's still a little time, and then. Long Fei said blandly as he took a step forward and said, Continue. Long Fei's words were like the voice of death. No one dared to speak. No one dared to go forward again. Long Fei laughed. Since there is no one else, let us talk about the heavens. Just a moment ago, you said that the God's tribe was going to deal with the God's design attic. The many elders glanced at each other. No one said anything. After all, this was related to the arrangements of the God's tribe. Whoever said it out would be betraying the God's tribe, and this outcome would be even worse than anything else. Long Fei laughed. No one said? Kwong Wang swept his gaze, and hugged his fists together, causing his joints to crack. Every single elder's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. One of the elders could not take it any longer and said, Right, God's tribe is going to deal with God's design attic. Long Fei said, Very good, continue talking. How are you going to deal with God's design attic? He swallowed hard and said, In 3 days, the God's design attic's artifact forging hall will be open. God's tribe wants to deal with God's design attic in the artifact forging hall. In order to deal with God's design attic, God's tribe has gathered the strongest artificers in the entire universal realm. Moreover, when the time comes, there will be a competition. As long as God's design attic loses, then God's design attic would either submit to him or perish, and God's tribe will not allow him to have a third choice. The number of words was very fast. After he finished speaking, he panted heavily. Long Fei was silent for a moment, and then said to himself, God's design attic has the strongest refiner. If God's tribe wants to compete with the refining pavilion, I'm afraid he won't be able to win, right? That elder said, It might not be possible with just God's tribe's refiners, but this time God's tribe has not only sent out Shrine's refiners, there's also a high possibility that there's an Ancient World's refiner as well. If it's Ancient World's artifact forging powerhouse, then he won't have any chance to win at all. There is no one the God's tribe cannot deal with. Long Fei secretly laughed, and said, God's tribe is truly tyrannical. That elder said, This year, many things happened. The Western Regions' domain was destroyed, and those who had originally died in the Western Regions escaped, being chased and killed by the powerhouse of God's tribe. At the same time, the God's tribe has also increased his speed of domination. None of the people who oppose the God's tribe have a good ending. Many of the overlord sects have been annihilated. Right now, the only ones who are still alive are the Xiao Yarrow city. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiao Yarrow City possessed an extremely powerful spatial secret technique, it would have been hard for him to escape the God's tribe suppression. The reason why I'm dealing with God's design attic this time is so that I can once again show those people that are opposing God's tribe. I'll let them know that God's tribe is the king of this world. There's nothing that God's tribe can't do. Those who obey will live on, those who oppose me will die. This is the purpose of God's tribe. The clan elder wanted to use the God's tribe to suppress Long Fei. They continuously thought about how Long Fei would explain how powerful the God's tribe was, and how he wouldn't end up well if he went against the God's tribe. It was just that. He did not know Long Fei's identity. He wondered how much capital Long Fei had. Long Fei muttered, "Xiao Yarrow City? Before the old headmaster died, he wanted me to visit the Xiao Yarrow City, but unfortunately, I was never able to. To be able to resist the God's tribe and not get destroyed, this Xiao Yarrow City is definitely not ordinary. When I have time in the future, I must go take a look." Long Fei secretly thought. Long Fei looked at the time and said, "All right, it's about time." The elder's heart trembled. He knew the meaning behind Long Fei's words, and spoke again and again, "My lord, the consequences of opposing God's tribe is dire, and powerhouse of God's tribe will not let go of anyone who opposes them. Even if it's the ancient clan, be it the Annihilated or the Tang clan, they will all be hunted down. Long family is even more so the watchdog of God's tribe. He's even worse than a dog. Vitality clan is a power of the God's tribe, if you..." Long Fei didn't listen to him at all, she only smiled and said, "If your luck is good, you don't have to die." As soon as he finished, the Savage King made his move. Each and every overlord powerhouse in the Great Hall looked up. Seeing that the Mad King had made his move, they became nervous, and started fleeing in all directions. How fast was Overlord Realm? The speed of lightning was average. But each and every one of them was like a little chick that was being pinched by the Wild King. Each and every one of their punches exploded upon impact. None of them survived. Long Fei was also looking at the system. In just 3 short minutes, the hall was filled with corpses. Suddenly, ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for completing the quest. And at this moment, Long Fei shouted, "Stop!" There was only one last elder left in the hall, the one who was talking to Long Fei. The Wild King was already standing in front of him. He was trembling with all his might, and his face was pale white. Looking at the Kwong Wang was as though he was looking at the face of a death god. He had never experienced the feeling of death nearby. It was even more terrifying than facing powerhouse of God's tribe. Long Fei looked at him and laughed lightly. "Keep your life on the line and watch how I defeat God's tribe." As soon as he finished, Long Fei said indifferently, "Let's go." After Long Fei left, that elder didn't even have the time to react for a good 4 hours, and couldn't even stand up. Looking at the corpses in the hall, his mind collapsed, and he escaped as if he had gone mad. At the peak of a mountain, Long Fei opened the system. Feather God Wings. This was the reward for completing the mission. It was also the Yu clan's most precious treasure. But Feather God Wings S were not flying beasts nor were they demon beastess in the system, but were a pair of wings. These wings were a bit special, and on both sides of the wings, there were dragons. Twin dragon wings? Long Fei moved. When the Feather God Wings wore it, a pair of wings immediately appeared on Long Fei's back. With a slight push of his feet, his wings moved, sure. 1 second passed. Long Fei was 10 kilometers in the air. Wow! This awesome guy. Long Fei was secretly happy. With this guy I can directly fly into Shrine. However, I'll make a trip to God's Design Attic first. Long Fei took out the God's Design token. The idea moved, looked at the map inside the God's Design token, and said to the Wild King, "Let's go, I'll forge a weapon for you." Kwong Wang's death hammer shattered. Kwong Wang's death hammer shattered. Without the hammer, he felt as if something was missing from his body. The first time he appeared in Hall of Eternal Life, he walked out of the darkness with the death axe on his shoulder. Moreover, he liked to blow people up, so if he were to take a huge hammer, it would be even more eye-catching. Ben. Long Fei wanted to fly directly to the shrine, and smash the shrine with his hammer first, but, thinking about the agreement he made with Li Yuanba at Western Regions, and how he had to rebuild the Sky Sword, and how the God's Design Attic was in danger, he could only go to God's Design Attic first. Luckily, the system gave him back the God's Design token, otherwise he might not be able to find the way. Weapon. What kind of weapon can this world forge? The Wild King expressed his hope. Long Fei smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, what I have forged will definitely not disappoint you." His refining techniques could no longer be compared with it. His current refining techniques should be at the top of the wild universe. Few opponents. Not only did he possess the refining techniques of the Horcrux's family, he also possessed countless artifact spirits, and he also had the Horcrux's family's most valuable treasure, the soul refining hammer. Refining? Who could compare to him? Compared to the people from Universal Realm, Long Fei felt like he was bullying others, and it was even the feeling of bullying a 3-year-old child. He just liked this feeling. Young Taoist said, "Senior brother, I also want a weapon." Long Fei said, "No problem, you guys follow me, I can't possibly treat you unfairly, right? If you follow me, Long Fei, you'll get something nice to eat and something hot to drink." Ha ha ha. Go to God's Design Attic. In the North Desert Domain, somewhere deep in the forest. Elder Swordsman, Senior Mie, Tang Long, Jen Feng, Tan De Pao and the rest were all ready. However, their eyes were serious. Tan De Pao had a complicated look in his eyes as he said, "I don't know if the General Assembly will appear this time, but if they don't appear now." Jen Feng said, "Don't worry, boss will definitely show up." Long Fei once said that they would meet at God's Design Attic. Now it was time. No matter what, they had to rush to the God's Design Attic. Over the past year, they had been on the run, being hunted everywhere. This was the most cowardly year of their lives. They did not dare to retaliate. They hid their names, avoided everything, and always endured. Even if they were bullied by a rogue on the streets, they would not retaliate. They didn't want to expose themselves. They were waiting. Waiting for the return of the king, waiting for Long Fei's appearance. Time was up. If Long Fei did not appear, they would have made their preparations. Elder Swordsman said lightly, "When the time is up, he will naturally appear." The Senior Mie also said, "I don't believe that the people from the Long family can die that easily. His power is different from ordinary people, he will definitely appear again." They weren't sure if Long Fei was still alive. However, Long Fei was their last hope. Boom. His entire body was covered in heavy equipment, and after landing, he changed into his human form and said, "Elder Swordsman, Senior Mie, they are all ready, they will also rush to God's Design Attic. You want us to meet up at God's Design City?" They were of course referring to the Queen of Blood Moon, Lan Mai, Su Su, and the still unconscious Shenyuan Li Er. Tan De Pao asked, "Brother Ice and Fire, is there any news from sister-in-law's side?" Bing Hua shook her head, "No, but they all believe their boss is still alive. He'll definitely come back." His voice was firm. Because he and Xiao Bai were the ones who believed the most in that Long Fei was still alive. Who was their boss? Whoever died, their boss wouldn't die. At this time, Xiao Bai also walked out of the forest, and turned into an adult from the White Wolf King, and said, "If everything goes well on Business Alliance of Fu family's side, they will arrange for us to enter the God's Design Attic." Bing Hua immediately asked, "Is it Sister Yun Shan?" Xiao Bai nodded his head, and said, "Yen, Business Alliance of Fu family is the only one that provides the materials for the God's Design Attic's merchant union, she can bring us to God's Design Attic. However, Sister Yun Shan has received news that Powerhouse of God's tribe will appear in the artifact forging hall this time. We need to deal with God's Design Attic." Speaking of the God's tribe, killing intent filled the eyes of everyone present. Elder Swordsman said, "I've endured for a year, but this old man has never experienced such anger before. No matter how strong Emperor Xian is, this old man will still bite off a piece of his bone." Senior Mie was the same. "All of my surnames were killed, and only a few descendants of my family were left alive. But if that kid from Long family appears, I will not tolerate it this time." Tan De Pao asked, "What about the Night Valley?" Xiao Bai said, "The 3 sisters will also be in, but I haven't been able to contact them yet. Binghua said, I really envy them. They are the only ones that can go around killing God's tribe dogs. How many of them have they killed this past year? The most terrifying assassination organization, they really did it. Too many things had happened in the past year. Night Valley had already become a synonym for killers. Even the God's tribe didn't have much of a way to deal with them. There were many times when they did not even know how they died. It was just that. There were only a few elites left in the Night Valley. Elder Swordsman said indifferently, all right, prepare to leave. Inside the secret world. Xiao Yarrow City. The people of Western regions have moved. If we do not move, then we are not Mu Clan. Emperor Xian wants to get rid of God's design attic, then it'll be our Xiao Yarrow City. The dragon race is useless. They have become the guard dogs of the God's tribe. However, the Mu Clan cannot act like them. This time, the artifact forging hall must teach the Emperor Xian a lesson. Even if my nephew doesn't appear, I still have to act as our Mu Clan should. The Xiao Yarrow City also moved. An elder of the Xiao Yarrow City was there when the western regions collapsed. But, at that time, he was unable to recognize Long Fei. And he did not have the power to bring them away. He could only watch as the western regions ruptured and Long Fei was swallowed into the endless darkness. However, he is Long Fei. It was the crystal of the Long family and Mu Clan, the kind of person who was destined to cause a sensation in the wild universe. They believed that Long Fei was still alive. The 1-year agreement with Li Yuanbar was about to arrive, he would definitely appear. God's Design City. On top of the Heavencraft Tower, there was a woman with long hair, her body like a sword, eyes filled with worry. Her right hand gripped the sword at her waist, and an ancient rune was embroidered on it as she stared into the distance. Fly, will you appear? Sword Force King Kong. Oya. He was already waiting in God's Design City. Below the pagoda, several experts were gathering. Aoya glanced at him coldly. In an instant, she disappeared without a trace. In another place, a simple and honest man was standing on top of a mountain in God's Design attic, also looking into the distance. Behind him stood a woman, Qing Yi. She was already dead, but now she was revived. Qing Yi did not walk to Li Yuanbar's side but silently watched him. After a long time, Li Yuanbar turned and saw Qing Yi. Qing Yi immediately revealed a smile and said, he will definitely appear. Li Yuanbar gave a silly smile and said, I know, he will definitely appear, because he's my boss after all. God's Design Attic. God's Design Attic. Hidden amongst the God's Design token was the map leading to the God's Design Attic. God's Design Token S were only given out a few pellets a year. To those geniuses who possessed strong refining talent, there were also some very special people. There were even fewer people who had been to the God's Design Attic than those who had entered the God's Tribe Palace. Thus, the God's Tribe Palace S, Mu Clan S, and God's Design Attic S were known as the Three Mysterious Lands. Shrine was the sacred place that martial arts training beings yearned for, the only place that led to the ancient world. The Xiao Yarrow City was an extremely happy place to be in the universal realm. The God's Design Attic was the holy land of artificers, and similarly, he was the land of treasures. It was rumored that every tree and flower in the God's Design Attic were treasures of the gods. Divine treasures were everywhere. Half of the divine treasures in universal realm came from there. The products of the God's Design Attic were definitely the best. God's Design Attic had a great reputation, being on par with him. However, this was not a good thing for the God's Design Attic. In this year's artifact forging hall, God's tribe suddenly said that she would send someone to participate, I'm afraid. A white-browed elder clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the heavenly mystery mountain. God's Design Attic was inside the secret world. It was like a small world. The mountain peaks were all suspended in midair. It was presented in the form of a crafting furnace. Every immortal mountain had a different type of element. It could be used to refine different divine weapons depending on the element. This secret world was like a divine treasure. The white-browed elder stood at the top of God's Design Attic. He had a secret lock on his forehead, so the words stopped at the tip of his tongue. It was just that. His frown deepened, and his eyes were full of worry. Another old man in a blue robe said lightly, "The Emperor Xian is about to attack us." The white-browed elder looked at the blue-robed elder and said, "Our God's design attic has no struggles in the world. We are only chasing after the most sacred path of artifact forging. We have no desire to fight for anything in the world. We have never thought of dominating anything, nor did we think of dominating anyone." He was puzzled. He was very clear about the methods of the God's tribe. Previously, they had only sent a symbolic elder to watch over him. However, this time, the God's tribe was sending the refining chief master out to participate. What did this mean? This meant that the God's tribe was about to make his move. Moreover, this was the order of the Emperor Xian. The blue-robed elder said, "You do not have the heart to be a hegemon, but he thinks that you do." This past year, following the destruction of the western regions, the primordial 9 regions only have 8 remaining domains, and the God's tribe's control over the universal realm has become stronger and stronger. Anyone who goes against the God's tribe will have their roots cut off, and no one can contend against the God's tribe. It's our God's design attic's turn. By my said, Brother Lan, we attack so many divine treasures every year and give them to the God's tribe. Does this not represent our position? It's not like we did anything to let the God's tribe down. We were always neutral. Could it be that this is also wrong? Blue Robe wryly smiled and said, "Have you ever heard of the saying that a man's wealth is his own fault? This is how the God's design attic is now. Whether or not you are wrong is not up to us to decide, but the Emperor Xian. Right now, in this world, we are in the God's tribe, no one can match up to us, so we can either become the dogs of the God's tribe, or, just like those sects and powerhouses who are unconvinced with the rule of the God's tribe, they will disappear forever." As the sound of his voice faded, the blue-robed elder looked into the distance as well, staring at the immortal peak located in the deepest parts of the secret world. That was the immortal Jade Peak. It was also where the secret world went into seclusion. Right now, those who were in seclusion were the ancestors and founders of the God's design attic. They were the people who forged the divine weapons for the Emperor Xian, the God's design craftsman. The blue-robed elder looked at the immortal Jade Peak and muttered, "I don't know if Master can save him now." Abbot Whitebrow was startled as well. His eyes flashed with a glimmer of light as he asked, "Master? No need, right? Since the God's tribe has sent out their refining chief master S to participate, they want to suppress us in terms of artifact forging, but..." Her white brows revealed a smile. "Who in universal realm can refine more than us? The refining chief master are simply unable to compete with us. As long as he can't win, the God's tribe will have no reason to go on a rampage. At that time, he will have no reason to even touch our God's design attic. Yes. It means that we have to defeat them and let the God's tribe know who is the most proficient at refining. Without the God's design attic, the level of equipment forging in the universal realm will fall by 100 years. Abbot Whitebrow was very optimistic. After understanding these things, he became excited. The blue-robed elder didn't think like that either. He didn't strike at Abbot Whitebrow either, and thought to himself, "There is no one stronger than us in the universal realm, but there is still the ancient world above. Is the ancient world not as strong as us?" Even so, with the personality of the Emperor Xian, if he wanted to do one thing, he wouldn't need a reason. This world belongs to the powerhouse. All these years, in order to consolidate his rule, as well as to establish an absolute power in the ancient world, he continuously released the ancient beings from the seal. Surnamed Tang, the massacre to end the surname was what Ancient World did when they entered the universal realm. In the Long family. But, right now, the Long family was completely suppressed by the Emperor Xian, and those who hated the Long family could not do anything. Once the Emperor Xian gave the order, the entire dragon clan would be exterminated. The current Emperor Xian wanted to be completely different from the previous Emperor Xian. He became brutal and powerful. He had to control everything. No one could shake him. He wanted to become the #1 emperor throughout the ages. His achievements far surpassed that of the past Long family. He had to control the nurturing path of the ancient world and break through the shackles, doing things that the Long family had never been able to do before. After a long time, below the God's Design attic, a disciple raised his head and shouted, "Grand Court, Second Pavilion Master, God's Design City is already here. Do you want to open up the passage?" Whitebrow said, "Senior brother, is the time almost up?" The blue-robed elder said, "Millimeter, it's time." The white-browed elder asked, "Have the God's Tribe's people arrived yet?" The disciple replied, "I haven't seen it yet." "What a big show of arrogance. God's tribe is so high up there, must we wait for him?" The blue-robed elder said, "He is indeed far above us right now. Forget it. Let's wait a little longer. The people from the God's tribe have appeared before opening the tunnel." The disciple said, "As you command." The disciple left. It was also at this time. The blue-robed old man's forehead tightened. His gaze shifted as he looked in the direction of the voice. "Someone, come." Only now did Abbot Whitebrow realize this. His expression also tightened. Space distorted, space shattered, and pieces of space fell down. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man in a black robe walked out from the void. The man's black robe was embroidered with the word carefree. Baimai was shocked. "Someone from the Xiao Yarrow city?" The blue-robed elder smiled faintly and said, "Mu Clan's magic space spell is indeed impressive. My God's Design attic's secret world is also above the divine level, yet you can easily enter it." "Murong Xiong." The middle-aged man laughed. "Do not mind, I am not here for you. I am here for my nephew." "Is he here yet?" "See, there's an emergency in the morning, and an update will be delivered at night." The Mu Clan, an ancient clan of the ancient world. The Mu Clan, an ancient clan of the ancient world. Similarly, Mu Clan obtained a special kind of power of ancient inheritance. Spatial technique. This was the only power of space that had been nurtured by the ancient world up till now. This was also the power that the Emperor Xian feared the most, and the power that he desired the most. Once he grasped the magic space spell, he could travel anywhere under the ancient world. But, ever since he had controlled the power of the ancient inheritance, there had never been a spatial-type secret technique. This was also the reason why he had to delay the Xiao Yarrow city for so long. Otherwise, how could a mere Mu Clan jump for so long after the dragon race was trampled beneath his feet? As long as he wielded the power of the ancient inheritance, he would be able to enter any world he wished to enter, secret world. When the God's Design attic saw that the space had distorted and the void had shattered, he immediately guessed that the Xiao Yarrow city's people had come. He never thought that the one who came would be the current patriarch of the Mu Clan, Murong Xiong. The surname Mu was called Rong Xiong. He was also the youngest patriarch in all of Mu Clan's history. The old patriarch of the Mu Clan had 3 children. The eldest was Murong Xiong, the second was Murong Qi, and the third was Long Fei, Long Fei's mother. The second brother, Murong Qi, disappeared. He left the clan when he was young and wandered around outside. There was no news of him until now. Mu Wana also disappeared. Of the 3, only Murong Xiong was in the Xiao Yarrow city, and he was the only one to take over the position of father. He was a space genius. Cultivating the power of spatial legacies to the limit, you had no idea where it would appear from or where it would disappear from. Murong Xiong had a smile on his face as he said, "Don't look at me like that, I'm really here to find my nephew." The blue-robed elder asked, "Murong Xiong, who is your nephew? Why was he here again? I suppose you must be mistaken. Who was Murong Xiong's nephew?" Even if the blue-robed elder was even more ignorant, he would still know who it was. The kid from Long family. But the western regions had collapsed, the brat was engulfed by a black hole, and Long Fei was no longer in this world. Not only that. After the God's tribe found out Long Fei's identity, all the people in the entire universal realm who were called Long Fei were killed. The God's tribe's method is to make it so that you will never be able to rise again. As long as there was even a sliver of a connection, he would not care about it. He would rather kill 1,000,000,000,000 wrongly than to let off even one of them. If he acknowledged Long Fei coming to the God's Design attic, then even if there was no reason, the God's tribe could still find a reason, and this person definitely could not enter the God's Design attic. Even if he entered here, he wouldn't be able to admit it. Murong Xiong grinned. My nephew's reputation is greater than mine. How would you not know? The blue-robed elder said, so what if I know? The western regions is collapsing, the black hole is engulfing everything. Do you think he will still be alive? Even if he lives, do you think he should be here? Could he be here? Does he dare to appear here? Isn't the death of millions of lives in western regions a lesson? If he's still alive, then he must stay far away from us. Otherwise, the next person to perish might be the North Desert Domain, the Heaven Sea region, or perhaps. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Murong Xiong said, or perhaps it's here. The blue-robed elder's eyes narrowed. Murong Xiong lightly walked in the air, as if he was walking on flat ground. With every step he took, the space under his feet would shatter, and like a cherry blossom, he would float down a few meters before disappearing again. It was extremely cool and free, and with the addition of his handsome and resolute appearance, it was even more attractive. I believe you know the reason why God's tribe sent someone to attend the artifact forging ceremony. Since Emperor Xian is going to make a move on your God's design attic, no matter how strong you are, I'm afraid you won't be able to stop him. Grand Court. I can help you. Abbot Whitebrow asked, you can help us? What kind of help do you have? No one in the Mu clan understood refining. Murong Xiong was the same. If the God's tribe wanted to make a move on the God's design attic, it must be because of the refining competition. There was no doubt about that. Murong Xiong said, your God's design attic's refining techniques is indeed very awesome. Universal Realm's first place is without a doubt, but what about your refining techniques compared to the ancient world's? Who's strong? Who's weak? Now that the Emperor Xian has brought back a few old monsters from the ancient world, do you think that you can withstand them? The blue-robed elder said, how can you help us? Murong Xiong smiled slightly, and said, it's very simple. I use my magic space spell and your artifact forging skills. In the entire ancient world, only my Mu clan knows the spatial technique. As long as you can refine this weapon, even the old monsters of the ancient world won't be able to do anything about it. The blue-robed elder's eyes didn't waver as he asked, what do you want? Murong Xiong laughed and said, I don't want anything. The blue-robed elder said, you, Murong Xiong, have never made a loss in your business. Would you help us with the spatial technique for no reason at all? Ha ha ha. Murong Xiong laughed a few times, and said, since you want to say it like that, then, I do not need much. Whitebrow's eyes tensed up, and he immediately said, no, allying with your Xiao Yarrow city, isn't that opposing the God's tribe? That way, will our God's design attic still be able to live? Murong Xiong, are you helping us? You are probably trying to harm us, right? The blue-robed elder said, do you think I would agree? The smile on Murong Xiong's face did not lessen, and he said, you have no other choice, only I can protect this place, and I am not only protecting the God's design attic, I am more worried that my nephew will appear here. The white-browed elder said, with your nephew here, our God's design attic will be in even more danger. Senior brother, definitely not. The blue-robed old man did not refuse, but neither did he agree. Murong Xiong did not let him answer immediately, and said, think carefully, as long as your God's design attic is still here, you can give me an answer. Right. I heard my nephew's King Kong is here. The blue-robed elder's eyes immediately darkened. Abbot Whitebrow's expression suddenly changed. Other than the two of them, no one else knew about Li Yuanbar's situation in the God's design attic. Once word of this spread, the consequences would be unimaginable. But Murong Xiong looked at their nervous expressions and said, don't be nervous. Actually, I still have a lot of things I know. Forget it. I can't be bothered to ask you to lead the way either. I'll look for it myself, and find out what's going on with ancient world. Let's go, farewell. Before he finished his sentence, his figure had already disappeared. He couldn't sense anything at all. Because Murong Xiong had already entered the spatial space. With sunken white brows, he said, Senior brother, I knew that something was going to happen. Even Murong Xiong knew about it. How could God's tribe not know? This King Kong. Something bad is going to happen. Damn. If not for the God's design tokens map, The ghost would not have been able to find this place, God's designed city, South Gate. Long Fei, young Taoist, and Kwong Wang stood at the main entrance as Long Fei was filled with emotion. What he had to sigh the most about was not the fact that the God's design attic was hard to find, but the fact that his feather god wings was the most difficult to find. If he did not obtain the feather god wings from completing the mission, he would not be able to reach God's design city even if he was given 3 months. Wow! Senior brother, look in the sky, there are birds flying everywhere, and all of them are high-level divine beast. This world is really interesting. Young Taoist looked at the immortal bird divine beast flying around in the sky, and revealed a look of envy. The savage king glanced at him. Obviously, he had already lost interest in flying fairy beast. He looked bored. He only felt good because he wanted to find someone who could fight with him and have a good fight with him. The God's designed city was also known as the City of Organs. Unless this place was opened, it would be impossible to find it. Every year it appears in a different place. Thus, they had to have God's design token leading the way. Long Fei glanced at the sky, then laughed lightly. Actually, all it looks like is a bit more beautiful, a bit more gorgeous, but in reality, it's useless. Alright, let me bring you guys to the city to have a look. Long Fei was a little excited in his heart. The 1-year agreement with Li Yuanba. God's design attic. Long Fei said in his heart, Shenyuan Li and Lan Mai heard everything that I said to him at that time. He should be coming soon. I really miss them. Long Fei could not wait and walked towards the door. The entrance was very special. There were no guards, and no guide. The strangest thing was that there wasn't even a door. What's going on? Long Fei walked forward and looked at the rows of words on the wall. The God's design token has activated everything. Long Fei took out the God's design token and placed it on it. Crack. Hualala. A series of sounds of a machine turning could be heard. It was also all of a sudden. A surge of power directly sucked Long Fei in. Wang, caught off guard, and not even having time to react, Long Fei was sucked into a powerful force, which then produced a buzzing sound as Long Fei entered into a wave of heat. It was like a portal in an online game. His eyes went black, and he opened them wide. In the next second, he appeared in the middle of the God's design city. Long Fei turned around and realized that the place behind him was not a city wall. Junior brother, Long Fei shouted. Young Taoist was not behind him. The Wild King was not there either. Actually, the two of them did not react either. This was because they did not sense any dangerous auras, so they were careless. Long Fei instantly disappeared. The two of them looked at each other, blinking as they stared blankly. 2 seconds later, young Taoist exclaimed out, Senior brother. The Kwong Wang was also shocked. He did not dare to be careless. Who was Long Fei? If something were to happen to the future Eternal Lord, the 3,000 worlds under the Hall of Eternal Life would all collapse. Moreover, he would call Long Fei boss, and that way, he definitely would not let anything happen to Long Fei. Boom. Boom. It didn't move at all. It was as if his strength had been blasted into the ocean. Huh. The Savage King was secretly shocked. He carefully looked at the city wall and said faintly, interesting. With regards to the young Taoist, the idea moved, and with a single step, it flew up into the sky. He wanted to fly in from the sky. With a single step, he flew down. He found out that the landing point was still outside the city gate. I can't fly in. Young Taoist was also stunned. This city is so strange. The Berserk King continued his continuous attacks, yet he still did not destroy the city gate. Every time, it was as if his strength had been smashed into the sea, without any bit of force. The two of them were ferocious, but to God's designed city, they were still confused. Kwong Wang, what's the situation? Didn't you say that the level of this world is not high? How can there be something that can stop us? Young Taoist asked. Kwong Wang also scratched his head in puzzlement, saying, how strange, what is this city made of? God's designed city. It was called the City of Mysterious Gate Escape. It was very difficult to crack it. Of course. This was also because young Taoist and Kwong Wang had never encountered such a situation before. The two of them were outsiders, so they were stupefied. Young Taoist muttered, "What do we do now? Senior brother's cultivation is very low. Is he in danger? If something happens to him, Master will definitely not let me off. Don't worry, he's the Eternal Lord. It's good enough that he doesn't bully others, but who can hurt him?" The young Taoist said, "Master said, senior brother's grasp of the power of eternity is not good. Moreover, this is his world, his level is so low, if there is someone who can deal with him, I'm afraid." The savage king secretly furrowed his brows. He wasn't afraid of 10,000, he was only afraid of one. If something really happened to Long Fei, then he definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Kwong Wang said, "Let's split up and look for the entrance. I don't believe that this kind of plane can stop me. We'll gather here later." Inside God's Design City, Long Fei circled around but did not manage to find an exit. He stopped a passerby and asked, "Brother, where is the entrance to God's Design City?" The passers-by laughed. "The God's Design token is the main entrance." Long Fei asked, "What do you mean?" The passerby asked, "Is this your first time entering the God's Design City? There are no exits or entrances in the God's Design City, so God's Design token are everything. Therefore, you must not lose them in this God's Design City." Long Fei asked, "Everything is inside the God's Design token? Could it be that there's an exit for the God's Design City inside?" The passerby said, "I advise you not to go out. The God's Design token that a newbie like you has should be of a very low level and can only go in and out once. If you go out, I'm afraid you won't be able to come in again. And the passage to God's Design Attic is about to open up. If we go too late, we won't be able to get a good seat. This year's refining ceremony will be extraordinary, and all of the God's tribe will be sending their powerhouse to attend. Let's stop talking. I need to hurry and occupy this place." Long Fei moved, took out the God's Design token and checked it. Indeed. The idea moved, and the word out appeared on its surface. But, thinking about what the passers-by said, Long Fei's heart tightened. "I came here to rebuild the Sky Sword, to look for brother. If they really can't see me, wouldn't they have missed it?" "Who?" Long Fei let out a light breath. Although his level was only 1, and he lacked 2 great warriors, the young Taoist and the Raging King, so his current situation was constantly dangerous. There are some things that must be done. Long Fei turned around and looked, then retracted his idea and walked toward the center of the city. The God's Design Attic's entrance immediately opened. "Did you see our boss? Did you see our boss?" In the dark, Xiao Bai scanned the surroundings with his 2 wolf eyes, and the sensing aura around his body. He filtered them one by one, but he couldn't find Long Fei. Xiao Bai shook his head and said, "No." His voice was a little dejected. Fire and ice could be seen through the crack in the door as a sea of people surged by. They passed by them one by one, but there was no sign of Long Fei. "Could it be that the General Assembly is not here?" Tan De Pao said softly. Xiao Bai said, "Unless boss hasn't returned to the universal realm yet, if he has, he will definitely come." Tang Long jabbered, "Could he really have been swallowed by a black hole?" Everyone's eyes instantly stared at him. He stared intently. Tang Long's neck shrunk as he said, "I was wrong." Although he was mistaken, the scene of the western regions collapsing was still fresh in his mind. The huge western regions had been engulfed by the black hole, and Long Fei was swallowed along with it. He could live. Now that he thought about it, he wasn't sure either. All of them secretly clenched their fists. At this time, Fu Shishan walked out and said, "The people from the God's tribe are here." Indeed. There was a commotion in the center of the city. A messenger from God's tribe descended from the sky and a passage appeared in the sky. Dozens of God's tribe palace guards quickly walked out and stood in 2 rows. A few elders slowly walked out. Behind them followed 2 burly men. 2 of them had heads wearing black veils. They looked down on their looks, but their bodies were surrounded by 2 visible auras. Tang Long took a whiff, staring at them, wanting to go berserk in an instant. Seeing that, the senior Mier pressed him down hard onto the ground. Magic tribe. Demon dwellers of the ancient world. It was also because of this that Tang Long lost his mind and went berserk. It was fortunate that Senior Mier reacted quickly, Otherwise they would all be exposed. Elder Swordsman also stepped forward to press Tang Long down, and said solemnly, "Seems like God's tribe has already made all preparations, and these two are most likely Ancient World's 2 artifact forging powerhouse. This time, I'm afraid the God's design attic will not be able to escape this calamity." Senior Mie shook his head. "That may not be so. If it was God's design craftsman who took action, he might still have the strength to fight. It's very suspenseful." Huff, huff, huff. The veins on Tang Long's body bulged, and it seemed as if every single one of them was going to burst out. "Let me out. Let me go out. I will cut down all the demon dwellers in the world." Senior Mie said, "Do you want us to die here? Don't forget what we're here for. First, find that Brat Long family, and then find him." "You better calm down," Elder Swordsman said in a deep voice. It was also at this time. "Welcome, Lord God's tribe." Everyone in the center of the city kneeled down in unison. The scene was even more spectacular than the appearance of the emperor. The current God's tribe was a lot more noble than the ancient emperors. Who would dare not to kneel? Who would dare to disobey? The end result was death. The 6 presbyter of God's tribes landed on the ground, revealed satisfied smiles, and said, "Everyone, get up. Today is God's design attic's artifact forging ceremony. Our God's tribe is also here to spar. Our identities are all the same." 6 presbyter of God's tribes walked out and bowed to the 2 burly men behind them. Everyone felt a shiver in their hearts. If even the presbyter of God's tribe had such respect, then the identities of these 2 people. This was definitely not ordinary. Especially the people from the God's design attic. Grand Court, God's tribe's people are here. And, other than the God's tribe's refiners on the list, there are 2 other people on the list. They wear veils and look down on people's looks, but their bodies are surrounded by a threatening aura, an aura completely different from that of the universal realm. A disciple hurriedly reported. Grand Court's eyes darkened. "Ancient World's powerhouse?" Whitebrow's eyes tensed up and he said, "Senior brother, this. Did the God's tribe really send the Ancient World to battle? Then we. No way. I want to go to the immortal Jade Peak to inform Master." Grand Court wanted to stop him, but his white brows had already flown out. God's design craftsman had been in seclusion for 18 years. Would he be able to comprehend the Great Tao? It was still unknown. However, in the end, Grand Court did not stop Abbot Whitebrow, perhaps. Only Master can stop them, and hopefully, God's design attic's calamity this time can be resolved. Notify the others. Open the passage, let them enter the God's design attic. Refining the heavens in 6 hours. Grand Court replied heavily. Finished. He too flew off in another direction. The direction in which Murong Xiong had disappeared in, was also the immortal peak where Li Yuanba and Qingyi were at. When the God's tribe's people arrived, he did not dare to delay any longer and immediately opened the entrance. In the center of the city, a sky stairway descended from the sky. The moment it landed, it formed a series of stairs, each of which were made of a special material. These materials all had one thing in common. They were all made from the result of thousands of tempering and tempering. 10,000 refinements. I heard that walking on this 10,000 refinement steps will provide a powerful refining upgrade, and it will be of great help to the refiners. Every step you take is refined by a powerful artificer. Rumor has it that the first thing an artificer who enters the God's design attic to do is to refine the myriad refinement stage. Every step is an existence of the holy artifact's treasure. If that's the case, then doesn't that mean that all the artificers in God's design attic are divine-level artificers? Then what? In the world of God's design attic, every flower, grass and tree are holy artifact. Don't talk about this anymore, hurry up and go in. Didn't even enter, how dare you be the first to enter? You want to die? The crowd began to discuss amongst themselves. In the dark, Fu Shishan thought, the delivery path is also open, let's go in. You're not waiting for the boss. Do you want me to go out and take a look? No way. Xiaobai wanted to go out and search. Everyone immediately stopped. The elder swordsman said, we'll talk about it after we enter the God's design attic. Long Fei will come, Then he will definitely enter the God's design attic. If he doesn't come, it's useless for you to go out to look for him. Let's see what the God's design attic wants to do first. Xiao Bai nodded lightly. Fu Shishan said, "Now, all of you follow me." The group entered the delivery passageway. At the corner of the street, Long Fei gasped for breath. Looking at the sea of people in front, he muttered, "We finally made it." It was also at this time. An elder of the God's tribe walked forward, his eyes cold and indifferent, as he watched the 10,000 refining step down, his eyes carrying a look of disdain, and said, "God's design attic sure is impressive, but our God's tribe actually did not receive anyone when he appeared. Humph. Seems like this God's design attic is really looking down on everyone else. I want to see whether they will take the lead or my God's tribe will be more imposing." Finished. He stood at the top of the steps, not going up. Since the powerhouse of God's tribe didn't go up, the others didn't dare to move either. Behind the group of people, Long Fei did not know what was happening as he squeezed through the crowd and said, "Why are you not going up? If no one is going up, then I'll go up first." It was originally very quiet. Long Fei squeezed forward and saw that everyone was in a daze. He was too lazy to say anything, so he just stepped forward. All of a sudden, the entire scene seemed to have exploded into an uproar. However, they still did not make a sound, but stared at Long Fei angrily, as though he was an old fogey who did not want to pay them back the money that he owed them. They all thought to themselves, "Is this guy crazy? Is this person crazy? Does he want to die? Does he want to die? Ha ha ha. This guy must be a joke. He's going to die. I can guarantee that he won't live more than 3 seconds. Even the presbyter of God's tribe was there. When would it be his turn to go up first?" Long Fei was the first to go up and slap presbyter of God's tribe. How could presbyter of God's tribe let him go? The 6 presbyter of God's tribe stared at Long Fei with their 12 eyes, staring like lanterns, as though they were going to eat him up. Long Fei took a step forward and felt a unique aura beneath his feet. At the same time, he also felt as if there were millions of murderous intents behind him. Turning his head to look at them, Long Fei grinned. "With so many people looking at me, do you think I'm really handsome? Hee hee. There's nothing I can do about it. I've been so handsome ever since I was born." Hiss. While speaking, Long Fei sucked in a breath of cold air and muttered, "This flight of stairs is a bit interesting. Why do I feel like I'm tempering my body in a furnace?" A ball of fire instantly ignited in Long Fei's eyes. Fiery eyes of truth. Focusing and looking, Long Fei was even more surprised, and said, "My God, this step is filled with holy artifact, it can raise refining force, such a good thing." Excitement could be seen in his eyes. He could clearly feel the various refining force on the stairs, as if it was a teacher teaching him profound things. "Who are you?" Presbyter of God's tribe interrupted Long Fei's satisfied expression and said solemnly, "Do you know who we are?" Long Fei said, "I do not know who the both of you are, and I do not wish to know who the both of you are, so there is no need for the both of you to know who I am." Long Fei took a second step. "I was tempering in the fire just now, but now I'm tempering in the 10,000 hammer blows. Holy shit, this step is really awesome. Every step is different." Many people secretly stepped forward. They were all eager to give it a try. However, Presbyter of God's tribe's face turned sinister as he said solemnly, "Brat, I don't care who you are, come down right now or I'll let you die on it." As soon as he finished, the aura on his body moved and charged forward. Boom! A loud explosion resounded. Long Fei's body trembled slightly, and he said, "Why are you coming down? There are holy artifacts on this step, and they can help you increase your refining strength." This God's design attic is truly generous. Even though we know it's going to be a refining competition soon, we still have to welcome you with this kind of holy artifact. Even God's tribe cannot do it. This should be the highest standard of treatment, even more powerful than the sect head welcoming him personally. The look on Presbyter of God's tribe's face became even more unhappy. Noticing his displeased expression, many of the elders of the major sects said, "Brat, come down quickly. Even if you want to go up there, it's not your turn to go up first." "What are you? Can you be the first to go up? Get the fuck down. Did you hear that? I told you to get the fuck down. Long Fei seemed to have provoked the wrath of the masses. However, Long Fei did not have any intention of going down, and said, "This step has an extremely strong power, every step will increase 1 step, and the steps will also increase. Whether or not you can endure it will depend on your own comprehension ability. You want me to go down? Then come up here." The further he walked, the more Long Fei felt that his power was deep and profound, and the more powerful his profound meaning was. Every step was unique. The higher he went, the harder it became. Presbyter of God's tribe's eyes turned sinister as he bellowed, "You're courting death." As soon as he finished, a God's tribe guard stepped out and stepped onto the 10,000 refinement stage. Boom. Without doing anything, his body was instantly set ablaze as he felt an endless amount of energy being refined within his body. He couldn't even stand properly, and he fell down instantly. Fire, fire, fire. The God's tribe guard walked down and looked at his body. It was completely fine, just that moment just now, it was as if he was going to be burned to death. Long Fei thought, "It does indeed have to do with my inherent skill, refining." Upon seeing this, everyone's eyebrows tightened. A refining chief master said, "Seems like only refiners can climb this step, and it depends on talent. Those who do not understand refining will not be able to do so." "Master, that kid is right. This 10,000 refinement stage is the highest standard of reception in the God's design." Attic Presbyter of God's tribe was still unhappy. He did not care if the 10,000 refinements was the highest standard. The fact that the God's design Attic's Grand Court did not appear was the greatest disrespect to the God's tribe. Moreover, Long Fei made him very unhappy. His eyes narrowed as he said, "Kill that brat." The surrounding people were shocked. Several refiners stepped forward. Their cultivation bases were all Overlord realm, and all of them were very strong. Both the artifact forging and martial arts training were powerful. Stepping onto the 10,000 refinement steps, he flew up and grabbed towards Long Fei's throat. Long Fei's mouth hooked up as he faintly smiled and said, "Kill me? If you can catch up with me, then we'll talk." Bang, bang, bang. Long Fei quickly stepped onto the stairs, step by step, and in a short half a minute, he climbed over 100 steps. Then, he lowered his head and looked at the several powerhouses behind him. They were panting. And it was very slow. Even if he was flying, he would still be restrained by the power of the stairs. Not fast at all. Presbyter of God's tribe frowned, feeling even more displeased. "A bunch of useless trash. I'll do it." A few more crafty craftsmen ran up with great speed and great talent. It was just that. To compare Long Fei, they were much slower. Seeing each and every one of them, not a single one of them could catch up. Long Fei grinned and said, "A group of scum. This young master doesn't feel like playing with you all anymore. I'm going to be the first one to enter the God's design attic." And then, Long Fei moved as though he was flying and quickly attacked. He didn't seem to be restrained by any power, as if he was walking on flat ground. It was easier than walking on flat ground. Everyone looked up at him. In less than a moment, he had entered the clouds, and even his figure could no longer be seen. Bang, bang, bang. In just 3 short minutes, he had already stepped over 10,000 steps. Ha ha ha. Am I the first person to enter the God's design attic? Long Fei shouted excitedly. The moment he entered the God's design attic, he took a step into the air, causing the surrounding time to become chaotic. However, this process only lasted for a short period of time. When he stepped on the ground, Long Fei shook his head. An illusion? What's going on? It wasn't here just now. Why is it on top of a mountain? Immortal Jade Peak. Long Fei muttered as he looked at the few words on the mountain peak. It was also at this time. Crack. At the entrance of the cave, the stone door opened. An old man with a head full of white hair excitedly walked out, as if he was his old friend from a long time ago. Ha ha ha. I've finally found it. Suddenly rushing out an old grandpa, caught Long Fei off guard. Suddenly rushing out an old grandpa, caught Long Fei off guard. Moreover, This old grandpa looked like a white-haired deity with a body of immortal bones. Seeing him rush in front of him with an excited look on his face, Long Fei retracted slightly, took half a step back, and looked behind him slightly. SSS. The heck? Behind him was the towering cliff. Not only that, Long Fei realized that all the mountains in the secret world were floating in midair. However, people can't. Don't move. The white-haired old man suddenly shouted. Seeing Long Fei retreating backwards, he immediately stopped and said nervously, "Don't move. Step forward slowly. I have to be slow, I have to be slow, I have to be slow." The old man was very nervous and his voice was very low as he spoke carefully. Long Fei didn't know what was behind him, he just followed his instructions. He took a light step forward. It was also at this moment that, rumble rumble, a demon beast almost flew into the air right behind him. His spine was chilled. Long Fei was shocked, he looked up to the sky and exclaimed, "What a big bat." A huge bat, just like a huge airplane, swooped down in a flash before it could bite Long Fei, and disappeared from sight in the blink of an eye. The white-haired old man said, "This is the 1000 revolution bat. It's extremely poisonous and cannot be touched. Otherwise, its entire body will rot. Come, come, come." Without waiting for Long Fei's reaction, the old man grabbed Long Fei's hand and carried him into the cave with gleaming eyes. Skinny Bone Claw's hand that was like firewood grabbed onto Long Fei's arm as if it was locked by steel. Long Fei wanted to struggle, but was unable to. He was a little scared in his heart. "Old deity, are you sure you're mistaken?" The old man said, "That's right, you." Long Fei said, "Why is it me? I didn't do anything." He didn't understand. Wasn't it just running faster? How did we get here? Long Fei secretly thought, it's really not safe to not have 1 or 2 bodyguards around. The old man smiled. "I've waited for 3000 years and have gone into closed-door cultivation countless times. This time I've waited for a person for 18 years straight. That person is you." As he spoke, he became even more excited. It was as if he couldn't wait for the rutting male who wanted to have a spanking relationship with him to bring Long Fei into the Ru family. Long Fei struggled with all his might and said, "Old deity, I'm not gay." The old man was stunned. What is the basics? Isn't this kid's mind too evil? What are you thinking about all day? Let me explain it to you first. I've been waiting for someone. Someone who can pass my legacy on to me, and that person is you. Because you took less than 5 minutes to refine 10,000 steps, and every step of the 10,000 refinement stage contained a powerful weapon crafting power. If you looked at the universal realm, or even the ancient world, no one could accomplish this in such a short time, but you appeared. Your refining talent is above average. No. To be able to reach the stage of refining 10,000 in such a short amount of time, you are the person I want to wait for. Come on. Follow me. The old man explained and got impatient again. Long Fei reacted and said, "You set up a restriction on the 10,000 refinement stage. If you pass through the 10,000 refinement stage within 5 minutes, you would break through the restriction and come here?" The old man said, "Smart. That's it. This is the cliff behind the immortal Jade Peak. You must be here to attend the refining ceremony. You don't need to attend, as long as you accept my challenge, you will be the master of the God's Design Attic." Long Fei was stunned. Become the master of the God's Design Attic? Holy *T. Old deity, you don't even know who I am, yet you want me to accept your legacy, and you want me to take charge of the God's Design Attic and become the master of the God's Design Attic. Aren't you afraid that I'll ruin this place? Long Fei was a little confused. There must be something wrong with this old man's brain. The old man smiled slightly and said, "Then don't worry. This old man has refined a weapon for his entire life and has also seen a person for his entire life. Refining a weapon, refining the heart first. Your talent has explained everything. Else, you would not be here." Long Fei muttered, "Your heart is truly big. However, I'm not interested in your clothes. I didn't come to the God's Design Attic to participate in some big refining ceremony. I came to look for the God's Design craftsman." The old man's eyes started to tighten, and in the end, he smiled with his eyes narrowed. What are you looking for God's design craftsman for? Long Fei said, let him forge a sword for me. The old man said, he hasn't refined a weapon in a long time. If you can pass on my legacy, he can refine it, so can you. Long Fei immediately asked, can we recreate the sky sword? As soon as he finished. The old man's expression suddenly tensed up, his eyes stared straight at Long Fei, sizing him up carefully, and said, You. Who is Long Zhanting to you? Who was the previous owner of the sky sword? Everyone in the universal realm knew, Long Zhanting. However, after that battle, the sky sword disappeared and never appeared again. Long Zhanting was also being suppressed in Dragon Abyss Dungeon. The sky sword did not have any news. The old man was shocked that the teenager in front of him had suddenly mentioned the sky sword. Long Fei's memories had not been restored, but the name Long Zhanting had appeared more than once. He knew in his heart that he was his father. Long Fei did not have any qualms. This time, the reason he came back from the Hall of Eternal Life was to make a mess in the God's tribe. He did not need to worry about anything, and directly said, he is my father. Words would not stop until one was shocked to death. The old man trembled slightly from fright. His pupils shrank quickly as he stared at Long Fei and said, you are the crystallized Long family and Mu clan, the kid from Long family who has been fighting against God's tribe all this time? Long Fei said, so my reputation is actually this big. The old man squinted his eyes, and said, do you know what I would get if I gave you to the Emperor Xian? Long Fei was very calm, and said, what can I get? Not only that, I can also obtain the unparalleled power of the ancient inheritance. I can also raise my refining techniques by another realm. Long Fei said, then you should give me to Emperor Xian. The old man was surprised, are you not afraid? Long Fei said, what are you afraid of? I am here to cause a ruckus in God's tribe, what is there to be afraid of? The old man's eyes flashed, and he said, as expected of the Long family's seed. Good job. Back then, Long Zhanting had allowed me to witness the sharpness of primordial first sword, so my cultivation in artifact forging greatly increased. I will remember this favor in my heart. All right. Today, I will recreate the sky sword for you. Long Fei looked at the old man and said, Senior is God's design craftsman? The old man nodded and said, you really want to pass on my legacy, don't you? Long Fei shook his head and said, I've never thought about it. It was also at this time. On the other side of the mountain. Master, God's design attic was in great trouble. I plead for Master to come out. Long Fei was at the cliff behind the immortal Jade Peak. Long Fei was at the cliff behind the immortal Jade Peak. Right in front of the cave, Abbot Whitebrow called out anxiously. However, there was no response from the cave. God's design craftsman only frowned slightly as he looked at Long Fei and said, God's tribe crushed the dragon race and your father should not be locked in Dragon Abyss Dungeon as well. Don't you want to deal with God's tribe? Long Fei replied, yes. The God's design craftsman said, now is the chance, as long as you pass on my legacy, I will be able to suppress the entire God's tribe, don't you want to? Long Fei said, you want to suppress the God's tribe to the point that you want to pass on your mantle? It's fine if they don't inherit it. Refining to suppress the God's tribe. Not to mention crushing them, pushing them out of their feces was something that could be done with ease and pleasure. What was the realm of the refining techniques that he had mastered so far? He stood above the ancient world. So what if he was a master refiner of the ancient world? Thus, Long Fei had never thought of inheriting the legacy of the God's design craftsman, as it was completely useless against him. God's design craftsman was a little anxious, and said, maybe I'm not as good as Long family in terms of martial arts training, but in terms of refining skills, I'm afraid no one in the entire Long family can compare to me. If you want to deal with the God's tribe, then start from here. Long Fei asked in confusion, I have a question. Since your artifact forging skill can defeat the God's tribe, why don't you take action yourself? Isn't that even better? What is my cultivation level? Warrior realm is the lowest level of existence. Even if I were to pass on your legacy, I still wouldn't have any spirit energy to support me in refining. What's the use of that? What Long Fei said was true. Refining required a formidable amount of spirit energy to support it. Long Fei was currently only at the first stage of cultivation. His spiritual energy was only at 100 points. So what if he had the God's design craftsman's refining techniques? Of course. The refining techniques that Long Fei had mastered in the Horcrux's family was different. God's design craftsman let out a long sigh, and said, "To tell you the truth, I am already unable to forge artifacts." Long Fei was startled. "What's going on?" God's design craftsman said, "I am already unable to refine any more divine treasures, my hand." He reached his hand out from his sleeve. The hand was just skin and bones, and 5 fingers were like 5 bones. Not only that, his hand was still shaking as if he had Parkinson's disease. He couldn't stop shaking. Refining the weapon required stability. It was impossible to refine a weapon like this. God's design craftsman said, 18 years ago, I received Emperor Xian's permission to enter the ancient world to search for the highest realm of refining, but the refining techniques of the ancient world is far beyond my imagination, especially those demon dwellers. They were completely refining their artifacts with their lives, and after a single competition, their tendons in my hands were shattered. Although I won once, I was no longer able to hold onto my hammer steadily. For the past 18 years, I've been working hard to change the forging method, but I still couldn't. Even worse, after that competition, my heart became cloudy and I was no longer able to perform at a normal level. That's why I wanted to pass on my legacy to you. Only you can help me, and only you can save God's design attic. When God's design craftsman spoke, his eyes were filled with bitterness. His heart was unwilling. But he had no choice but to accept his fate. It was also at this time. In front of the immortal Jade Peak, Abbot Whitebrow's voice rang out again, "Master, disciple Whitebrow, please come out. Master, this disciple, Whitebrow, begs you to come out of seclusion." Long Fei said, "You can pass it to your disciples." Our God's design craftsman shook his head and said, "Even though they are extremely skilled refiners, their talent is still limited. The 10,000 refinement stage takes more than 5 minutes. Even if I pass my legacy to them, they won't be able to take it." Long Fei said, "You think so highly of me." God's design craftsman nodded his head, "Your talent, your aptitude is the best I have ever seen. Moreover, you're from the Long family, so the dragon blood flowing in your body will create a powerful force. You are the best candidate." He looked excited. The more Long Fei looked at it, the more he liked it. It was as if Long Fei had immediately kowtowed to him and acknowledged him as her master. Huff! Long Fei let out a long breath, let it out lightly, and said, "Actually, about that, I do not wish to strike a blow to you. Your lifetime's cultivation, refining comprehension, and techniques are all nothing to me. Let me be more direct. Your refining techniques is just trash in my eyes." Originally, he wanted to be more tactful, but Long Fei was afraid that the God's design craftsman would hold him back, so he could only be straightforward. God's design craftsman was stunned. No one had ever dared to say such a thing in front of him. The God's design attic was the highest level of artifact forging in the entire universal realm. Disdain of this place. The number 1 artificer in the universal realm? Was this arrogance? He must be blind. If anyone else in the God's design attic heard what Long Fei said, they would definitely laugh at his ignorance. However, God's design craftsman did not laugh, but looked at Long Fei seriously, and said, "Say it again." Long Fei said, "I am not targeting you. I am saying that the entire universal realm's refining techniques is like trash." God's design craftsman's pupils tightened and his expression became somewhat unhappy. The dragon race was arrogant. The strongest being on the surface, once the number 1 family in the ancient world, he had the right to be arrogant, but to say that his refining techniques was trash, that was a little too much. You dare to speak like that? Even your father, Long Zhanting, would not dare to look down on my refining cultivation. You're too arrogant." God's design craftsman was extremely angry. Long Fei did not explain, but asked, "Are there any refining platforms in the cave?" The God's design craftsman nodded. Long Fei did not ask anymore and walked into the cave. Bang, bang, bang. 3 minutes later, Long Fei walked out again and God's design craftsman stood at the entrance of the cave. Seeing Long Fei walk out with a black sword, without any shine, and without any energy aura, it looked like a piece of scrap metal, and was not a weapon. Long Fei walked to his side, placed the sword in front of him, and asked, "Can you appraise what kind of sword this is?" God's design craftsman wanted to take it. Long Fei stopped him. "It's still better that you don't take it. You simply can't." God's design craftsman's gaze turned cold as he said angrily, "Brat, you're too arrogant. I have spent my entire life refining and refined countless divine weapons. Even if my hand tendons are broken now, I can still hold onto this sword." Finished. He snatched the sword from Long Fei's hand. It was also at this moment. His arms sank, and his entire body fell to the ground. If not for Long Fei's support, he would have been smashed into the ground. His hand was firmly pressed down. It felt as if the sword weighed more than anything, more than 1,000,000,000 pounds. God's design craftsman's eyes trembled. He was completely stunned and his eyes no longer looked at prideful eyes. Instead, they looked at Long Fei with incomparable shock. This sword. This sword. Why is it so heavy? He was stupefied. He was stupefied. After a lifetime of training as an eagle, he was finally pecked in the eye by an eagle. God's design craftsman was truly stupefied. His understanding of artifact forging surpassed everything else, but he felt that his thoughts were like dust being sucked into the sword. They were too small. He had never encountered such a thing in his life. He did not believe it. He thought that Long Fei had done something. He checked it carefully. Material, refined iron. The workmanship is rough. There is no special energy or, no special spiritual energy, no elemental energy. However, why is it so heavy? Wait, what's that? God's design craftsman realized that there was something special about the sword. However, he had never seen something like this before. He raised his eyes, looked at Long Fei, and asked, "What is that thing?" Long Fei replied, "Soul." God's design craftsman immediately denied, "Sword soul? No, there is also a sword spirit in the divine weapon that I refined, but it is not like that." Long Fei was secretly surprised. To be able to refine a sword spirit, this was definitely not an ordinary refining techniques. Generally, sword spirits were created through continuous use and connection with the sword. This was a very long process, only then would the sword spirit be created, so the number of sword spirits refined was too few. Long Fei said, "This is not a sword spirit, it's a sword spirit. Weapon soul? Why have I never heard of it?" God's design craftsman had a face full of doubt. Long Fei said, "So that's why the refining techniques that you have mastered is of no use to me? Do you understand now why I don't want to pass on your legacy? The soul within this sword is called soul emphasis. Unless I allow it to recognize you as its master, no one will be able to lift it." While speaking, Long Fei picked up the sword and placed it on the ground, then waved towards God's design craftsman. God's design craftsman did not believe in evil. His hands moved in unison, but, with all his might, the sword did not budge at all. His cultivation was an overlord's peak realm, his martial strength was not weak, and his strength was even more astonishing, but no matter how much strength he used, it was useless. The long sword did not move at all. Hoo 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 hoo. Hoo 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 hoo. The God's design craftsman gasped for breath, swallowed his saliva and said to Long Fei, "My entire life has been spent on artifact forging. I have never seen any divine treasure that could cause me to be this shocked. Today, I've finally opened my eyes. Brat, I was wrong. I'm too ignorant." Long Fei hurriedly said, "Senior is too serious." No, God's design craftsman said, "I thought my refining techniques was the peak of this world, but I just can't understand a weapon that you can casually forge. However, that's good too." Finished. God's design craftsman pulled Long Fei. The power of the Overlord realm caught Long Fei and directly brought him into the cave. On the other side of the cave, Disciple Whitebrow, please come out. Master, God's tribe has brought refining Chief Master. If you don't come out, we won't be able to stop them. If we lose, God's tribe will definitely make us submit. Master. Whitebrow was incomparably frantic. At this moment, God's Design Attic's Tianji Summit Plaza was already filled with people. These people were definitely part of the power of the God's tribe, the overlord-level sects of the universal realm. The refining chief master-s of these sects were still okay, they could deal with them. But it was difficult for them to resist the God's tribe's refiners, the ancient world's refiners. Master, the life and death of God's Design Attic is today. Are you going to come out? Master. Whitebrows raised his voice. At this moment. Crash. When the stone door opened, God's Design craftsman pulled Long Fei out and said angrily, shouting and screaming, shouting non-stop. I am not deaf because of you. Whitebrow immediately laughed. Master, you've finally come out of seclusion. I was just afraid that you'd be too engrossed in your cultivation to hear me. When his eyes saw Long Fei, he was slightly shocked and said, Master, who is he? I've never seen it before. He had seen all of the God's Design Attic's disciples, but only Long Fei did not. Moreover, coming out of the celestial wall cave was even more strange. God's Design craftsman said, let me introduce to you. He took a glance at Whitebrow, then thought about Long Fei's Dragon Clan's identity, God's tribe's #1 wanted criminal, and changed his tone, let me introduce you to my ass. Whitebrow, God's Design craftsman said, call him Marshal Uncle. Abbot Whitebrow smiled. So it's junior disciple. God's Design craftsman stared at him, what Marshal nephew? I told you to call him Marshal Uncle. Bai blinked at Long Fei, and was a little confused to say, Master, you're not mistaken, right? I call him Uncle Master. Is he still your junior? You can't, you never had a master, so logically speaking, he can't be your junior. God's Design craftsman was also stunned for a moment, and then he muttered, that's right, I have never refined a weapon to become a disciple, all of them were found by myself, so. He glanced at Long Fei. God's Design craftsman said, it is not right to call him Marshal Uncle. How about this, you call him Marshal Ancestor? Abbot Whitebrow was stunned again. God's Design craftsman said with a serious face, that's right, calling him Grandmaster, Grandmaster should not be wrong. Bai looked at Long Fei, completely dumbfounded. The God's Design craftsman scolded, what are you still standing there for? Call him Grandmaster. Abbot Whitebrow felt very awkward. Master, is there something wrong? This age, this cultivation, why? Can't call out. How old is Long Fei? His cultivation is only at warrior realm. To call such a person Grandmaster? God's Design craftsman's eyes became angry as he said heavily, if I tell you to call me that, just call me that. If you bullshit again, do you believe that I won't cut you up? He understood his master's words very clearly. If he said that he would cut him, and seeing that Long Fei was not convinced, he said, Master Ancestor. God's Design craftsman did not buy it, and said, louder. Abbot Whitebrow grimaced. He was extremely unwilling to accept this, but he didn't want to waste any time. At this time, the refining ceremony had already begun, and if he didn't return soon, something might happen. The God's Design craftsman nodded his head in satisfaction, and said, all right, you can bring him to Tianji Summit. He can help you solve your problems. Huh. Long Fei was startled. Abbot Whitebrow was also stunned. The God's Design craftsman said to Long Fei in a low voice, if you are already a Grandmaster, why aren't you helping your grand disciple? Long Fei, God's Design craftsman said, seeing you as the ancestor, you sure felt good. Abbot Whitebrow said, what's the use of him coming with me? God's Design craftsman said in a heavy voice, what about him? He said to call him Grandmaster. Whitebrow said, Master, what's the use of coming with me? Can he deal with the master refiners of the God's tribe and the ancient world? The God's Design craftsman didn't pay any attention to him and instead said to Long Fei in a low voice, if you help me solve this crisis, I will help you reforge a sky sword. Long Fei's eyes turned cold, and without hesitation, he shouted, deal. Even though Long Fei had the artifact Soul Clan's refining techniques, but How was the Sky Sword recast? Even though Long Fei had the artifact Soul Clan's refining techniques, but how was the Sky Sword recast? What materials do I need? He had no idea. Moreover, the Sky Sword spirit had told him to find the God's design craftsman. Probably, in this world, only the God's design craftsman could recreate Sky Sword. Long Fei gave the heart of the Sky Sword to God's design craftsman, and said lightly, "Senior, I'll leave everything to you." God's design craftsman said, "I'll be counting on you too." Finished. He turned around and walked into the cave. He then shut the door with a bang. He only left behind a confused expression on his white brows. Abbot Whitebrow ran to the front of the stone door and shouted, "Teacher, Master, Master. This. Master, come out of your seclusion. It's good for you to go to the Tianji summit." Master. However, no matter how much he yelled, it was useless. The God's design craftsman had no intention of listening to him. Long Fei said lightly, "Let's go." Bai Mai turned to look at Long Fei, her eyes filled with anger. She had been unwilling to accept it since the start, but now that the God's design craftsman was no longer around, she directly revealed it. Staring at Long Fei, her white brows sunk as she said, "Brat, I don't care what you have done to Master, just stand to the side when we reach the 1,000 revolution peak." It did not look good for Long Fei at all. Abbot Whitebrow's temper was rather explosive. If there was anything, it would be written on his face. If his master did not specifically instruct him, he would not even pay attention to Long Fei. "Don't even bring him to the Tianji summit." Long Fei laughed bitterly and said, "Whatever you say is fine." Abbot Whitebrow let out a cold snort. He looked at the stone door with resentment and his heart sank. "What should we do now? It is simply impossible for Senior Brother and I to stop him with just our level of artifact forging. What should I do? Does Master really just watch helplessly as the God's design attic is destroyed? Sigh. A great disaster is about to befall us." Abbot Whitebrow was depressed. He was now incredibly worried, because towards the Long Fei beside him, he did not hold any hope, so who would place their hopes on someone with a warrior realm? A fool is about the same. Tianji summit. I can't see my boss. As expected. The boss didn't come. It's not a matter of whether he comes or not. Is he dead or alive? In the dark. Xiao Bai and his group kept on attacking the people in the plaza, but no matter how many times they checked, they could not find any trace of Long Fei. Fu Shishan also walked into the room, shook his head, and said, "I asked for the name of the elder at God's design attic, but Long Fei's name was not found." Queen of Blood Moon's eyes went cold. Then, has husband not come back yet? Su Su's tears fell down his face, the black hole engulfing everything. The entire western regions is gone, big brother Long Fei. The more he spoke, the more tears welled out of his eyes. Lan Mai's eyes also tensed up, his fists clenched tightly as he stared at the nearby presbyter of God's tribe who was flaunting his strength, his teeth chattering loudly, before he shouted, "God's tribe." Xiao Bai said, "I believe Boss is still alive, it's just that he hasn't appeared here. Boss has experienced countless calamities, and every single time he has not escaped with his life, nothing will happen to him." Bing He immediately said, "I believe it too." Huff. Elder Swordsman let out a long breath, and said, "Since Long Fei did not appear, then we must change our plans." Tan De Pao said solemnly, "Change what? The boss is not here, this daddy is going to fight with the God's tribe." Dog Tang Long stared at the two veiled demon dwellers, wanting to rush out several times. The senior Mie said solemnly, "Elder Swordsman is right, since we think that Long family is still alive, then we must continue to endure. The current God's tribe is so powerful, we cannot fight head-on, we can only wait for the right opportunity." Fu Shishan said, "Follow me back to the Merchant Union. My Fu family controls the secret world several times. As long as we hide inside the secret world, it would be very difficult to find the people from the God's tribe. I will keep a close eye on Long Fei." Fu Shishan was also anxious in her heart, it was just that she did not reveal it. However, Fu Shishan looked at the plaza, and said, "It's just that this time, whether or not the 1,000 Revolution Pavilion can protect themselves. If the God's tribe wants to use the God's design attic, I'm afraid that the God's design attic will not be able to escape this time. A sinister look appeared in everyone's eyes. His eyes were filled with hatred, but even more so, it was filled with unwillingness. If they were strong enough, they wouldn't be able to avoid cowering like a turtle. After a long while, the elder swordsman said slightly, "Let's plan this out first. We will hide with business alliance of Fu family first. As for God's design attic, there's nothing we can do." The aura of the two ancient demon dwellers was extremely dangerous. It wasn't something they could deal with. Fu Shishan said, "Then you guys wait a moment, I'll take you guys to leave after I deliver the goods." In another place, Li Yuanbar's gaze was also constantly searching. Boss, are you really not here?" Last time he missed the opportunity, Li Yuanbar was extremely frustrated. He felt extremely regretful in his heart. This time he entered the God's design attic in advance because he was afraid that he would make another mistake. However, he checked everyone who entered the Tianji summit, but there was no sign of Long Fei. Qingyi comforted her, "Don't worry, he will definitely be fine." Li Yuanbar's heart sank. "Boss, where exactly are you? There's really not much time left." Oya was watching. He also did not find Long Fei. Her heart was equally worried. After all, it was a black hole devouring. She didn't see Long Fei's figure, so she kept holding on to her heart and felt very uncomfortable. "Nephew, my nephew, are you here yet or not? Where are you? I'm really going to be driven crazy by you." Murong Xiong kept looking through them, but they were all nothing. There were tens of thousands of people in the plaza of Tianji Peak. It was very difficult to eliminate each of them one by one. Moreover, without a specific aura or special characteristics, finding a person was too difficult. Of course, that was not the absolute reason. They only placed their target in the middle of this group of people. They never would have thought that Long Fei would be brought to God's design attic by Whitebrow. "Who is he?" Grand Court looked at Long Fei. The white-browed man said angrily, "A useless person. Senior brother, let's not talk about him anymore. Tell me about the current situation." He did not want to introduce Long Fei. He was even more unwilling to call Long Fei the ancestral founder. Long Fei was basically useless in his eyes. The Grand Court looked at Long Fei, and then his eyes turned serious as he said, "Murong Xiong is right. This time the God's tribe is going to take advantage of us, the God's design attic. Everyone here, all the artificers are from the God's tribe. These weapons craftsmen from the various transcendent sects are still all right. The key is just those two." His eyes looked at the two demon dwellers with veils. Abbot Whitebrow's eyes narrowed. "A powerhouse from the ancient world?" The Grand Court nodded. Long Fei also took the opportunity to take a look. In that instant, his eyes lit up with excitement. F***CK, two big bosses shining with golden light. With just a glance, Long Fei's gaze tensed up, his entire body filled with energy. With just a glance, Long Fei's gaze tensed up, his entire body filled with energy. "Boss. F***CK. I haven't seen any bosses in a long time. If I kill these two bosses, I should be able to reach the Martial Saint level, right?" Long Fei's eyes lit up. He said lightly, "Junior brother, Wild King, get ready." Before he could finish his words, Whitebrowed and Grand Court looked at Long Fei. Long Fei was also startled, and thought, "Damn, I forgot that the two of them didn't follow us. This is going to be troublesome." What was the first reaction after seeing the boss? Kill him. Therefore, Long Fei immediately wanted the young Taoist and the Raging King to attack him together and leave him with some blood. He could also soar into the sky. But right now, the two of them were not by his side. This made Long Fei's heart shiver. Damn. The white-browed man glanced at Long Fei, then turned to Grand Court and said, "Ignore him. Senior brother, what about the two demon dwellers from Ancient World?" Grand Court frowned. "If Master is not willing to come out, then we will go deal with him. No matter what, we will do our best." Abbot Whitebrow was slightly discouraged. He still had some confidence in becoming a master refiner of the God's tribe, but was he the powerhouse of the Ancient World? He didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. He had never even been to the ancient world, nor had he seen what the ancient world's refining techniques looked like. However, they had heard from their masters that the ancient world's refining techniques was extremely powerful. That kind of ancient alchemy transcended everything in universal realm. The corner of Whitebrow's eyes glanced at Long Fei again, and even though he was thinking about it, he got a little angry. He didn't understand why Master wanted him to bring a brat like him here. What could he do? He really could not see any special power in Long Fei's body. With this kind of cultivation, he could not even beat her. How could he train to such a low level? The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he got. Abbot Whitebrow harumphed. Stay here and be honest with me. Don't create trouble for me. Long Fei shrugged his shoulders. Right now, he was thinking of a way to kill the two bosses. If Junior Brother and Wild King aren't here, he can only rely on himself. Grand Court took a deep breath and said, Junior Brother, let's go down. It's time. Immediately. Whitebrow warned Long Fei again, Brat, did you remember? Don't cause trouble for me. Grand Court walked down the God's Design attic. The group of elder refining followed him down. Inside the pavilion, only Long Fei and a few disciples remained. Long Fei was also too lazy to move. From his vantage point, he was able to see what was happening below. He really liked watching a show. Perfect. Let me see the strength of the two bosses and see if we can find any weaknesses. Long Fei was relaxed and satisfied. Grand Court walked down the God's Design attic. One of the presbyter of God's tribe immediately revealed a condescending sneer, and said, Grand Court sure is impressive, to actually make us wait so long. Those who don't know better would think that your God's Design attic is above my God's tribe. Grand Court changed his smile, bowed slightly, then explained with a smile, Elder, you are overthinking it. How dare our God's Design attic stand above the God's tribe? We are just a small forging ground. Not waiting for him to finish. Presbyter of God's tribe immediately cut him off and sneered, You still know that your God's Design attic is only a small place for refining weapons? I thought your God's Design attic was a god. Grand Court could only smile apologetically, and said, Please forgive me, Elder. Forgive? Humph. You don't even have the right to be forgiven by me. Presbyter of God's tribe's face was full of arrogance, as he ruthlessly trampled Grand Court, almost to the point of trampling him underfoot. The Grand Court didn't mind as he replied, Elder, the time has come. The heavens altar forging ceremony will soon begin. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, he was interrupted once again. Presbyter of God's tribe said, It's fine if the ceremony is a little slower, I still have Emperor Xian's message here. The rites of heavenly worship was extremely important to the artifact forging ceremony of the God's Design attic. This was a belief in God's Design attic. Moreover, he had been dragged out by the God's tribe for a long time, and now it was time for the sacrifice of the heavens. Everyone had their own beliefs. If their beliefs were trampled on and tainted, it would be a great humiliation. Grand Court asked, Can the Emperor Xian's words be said after the sacrifice is over? How dare you, Presbyter of God's tribe growled, How dare you? You dare to disobey Emperor Xian? Just like that, a big hat was put down. Grand Court's eyes darkened, and he said, Elder, I do not have any intention of offending Emperor Xian, but the heavens sacrifice ceremony is very important to us God's Design attic, and the duration of the ceremony is very short too. If there's anything you want to say, we can talk about it after it, is that okay? There was a hint of pleading in his voice. He was the pavilion master of the God's Design attic, he had to think for the God's Design attic. It was just that, Presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly and said, Is the heavens sacrifice ceremony of any importance to you guys? Let me ask you now, do you dare to disobey the Emperor Xian? It was just a few words from Emperor Xian. He was making things difficult for the God's Design attic. That was to put the Grand Court in an awkward position, and that was to humiliate the God's Design attic. Because this was a world under the control of the God's tribe. You don't accept this. If you refuse to accept it, then try to make a move. The artifact forging ceremony did not even need to compete, and just killing the God's Design attic was easier said than done. Presbyter of God's tribe's face was filled with arrogance, waiting for Grand Court to go berserk. His disdainful face seemed to say, "Go berserk, come on, get angry. Let's see how I'll kill you." Abbot Whitebrow could not bear to watch any longer. The God's Design Attics were all filled with righteous indignation, and wished that they could pounce on that presbyter of God's tribe and slap him hard in his face. However, they had to endure. If we are to compete in martial arts, let alone the God's tribe. Even the powerhouses of the various transcendent powers were not their match. There was still a slim chance of survival in the refining competition. At this moment, those sect powerhouses all looked at them with hostility, waiting for them to get angry. Grand Court clenched his fists tightly, a smile hung on his face, and he said, "All right, Emperor Xian is the boss. If he has anything, we will do our best to comply with him." He had to endure it. Presbyter of God's tribe sneered in disdain, "So you know how to be tactful." Abbot Whitebrow roared angrily, "Are you done yet?" Presbyter of God's tribe glared at him and said angrily, "Who do you think you are? You have the qualifications to speak in front of me. How dare you speak to me like that? Grand Court. He is humiliating me. I am here on behalf of the God's tribe and it is him who is insulting the God's tribe. Can you bear the crime of insulting God's tribe?" Another shitty bowl was taken off. Presbyter of God's tribe smirked arrogantly as he looked at Grand Court proudly. "I forced you to do nothing. I forced you to do nothing. Is to keep trying you. As long as you dare to rage, if you dare to make a move, then save yourself all the trouble and start directly." Moreover, his goal this time was to destroy God's Design Attic. If he could solve it by force, why waste his refining time? He kept going berserk. This forced the people of God's Design Attic to be unable to suppress the anger in their hearts. They had always been rebellious and unruly throughout their lives. Now that they were pressured by someone of similar age, the anger in their hearts was like a volcano that was about to erupt. Just because of his people from the God's tribe. You can be so arrogant and despotic. Grand Court's eyes also tightened as he clenched his fist even tighter. Presbyter of God's tribe continued to speak, "Grand Court, do you know what punishment it is for insulting God's tribe?" Grand Court looked at Bai Mai from the corner of his eyes. Bai Mai looked at Presbyter of God's tribe. His body was covered in flames and waves of heat waves were coming out from his head. It was as if fire was coming out from his head. The Grand Court said solemnly, "Elder, your words are serious, right?" Junior brother did not say it on purpose. How would we, the God's Design Attic, dare to insult the God's tribe? Presbyter of God's tribe laughed. "I didn't insult what you said, it doesn't count." Everyone present heard what he said just now. "I am just asking if it's the people from God's tribe. Did he insult the God's tribe?" Everyone shouted in unison, "Yes." Just like how the military instructor was shouting, his voice was neat and orderly. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed complacently. "Grand Court, you heard it? I'm not the only one who said that he had insulted God's tribe, right? In the dark. Fuck, isn't this too much? Lousy has never seen anyone bully others like that. Too arrogant. I can't wait to rush out and stomp on him." Xiao Bai and the others were also extremely angry. The God's tribe was bullying him. They didn't want to give others a chance to live, so they could just stomp on them however they wanted. Not to mention delaying God's Design Attic's sacrifice to the heavens and tarnishing God's Design Attic's faith. Now that the God's Design Attic had insulted the God's tribe, how much of a bully was this? Elder Swordsman said solemnly, "This world still relies on fists. If it wasn't the God's tribe, who would dare to ride on the head of the God's Design Attic?" This was reality. Whoever's fist was strong enough, was the king. Emperor Xian, the #1 powerhouse, and the king of the God's tribe, who would dare match up against him? Grand Court turned slightly and looked at the white brows behind him. Abbot Whitebrow clenched his teeth. He ruthlessly slapped himself in the face and said heavily, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Elder, please forgive me, Pa." A resounding slap. The surrounding people were shocked. Slap him in front of so many people. You have to know that he is second pavilion master of God's Design Attic. His identity is noble, but he actually slapped himself in the face. Presbyter of God's tribe trembled slightly. The smile on his face became even wider. Ha ha ha. He started to laugh loudly. It was just that. The laughter suddenly stopped. Presbyter of God's tribe was ice cold, like an old eunuch, and said with a duck-like voice, "Insulting God's tribe, you think a slap is enough?" At this moment, every elder of the God's Design attic had a sinister look in their eyes as they stared at the presbyter of God's tribe with furious eyes. Grand Court said solemnly, "Elder, it was just an accident, isn't this a little too excessive?" Presbyter of God's tribe laughed. "Have you passed? Why didn't I think it was enough? Wouldn't everyone be able to humiliate the God's tribe if he were to end things with just a slap? And what's wrong with hitting yourself? If you want to punish, then punish the people from our God's tribe." Abbot Whitebrow said directly, "Come on, what do you want?" "Yo, you're quite stubborn, aren't you?" Presbyter of God's tribe sneered, the corners of his eyes twitched. The elder behind him walked out. A 2-meter tall man. All the muscles in his body exploded. Hugging his fists together, his joints cracked. Standing in front of Abbot Whitebrow, he felt like he was a child. Without waiting for Abbot Whitebrow to speak, Presbyter of God's tribe coldly said, "Attack." He opened his palm and viciously slapped downwards like a bear's paw. Bam! This wasn't a slap, but a ruthless smash that brought with it a strong wind. Furthermore, he exerted all of his cultivation and with a slap, Abbot Whitebrow fell to the ground. His head slammed into the ground, causing blood to gush out like a fountain. Black blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth as well. The flesh on his face was split open, and even his bones were exposed. Half his face was split open. The sight was shocking. Second Pavilion Master. Second Pavilion Master. Master. Everyone from God's Design attic surrounded him. Grand Court clenched his teeth and said, "Elder, this should be enough, right?" Presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly and said disdainfully, "This old man doesn't remember this lowly one. Today, I will forgive you in front of so many people. If you let me hear about your disrespect towards God's tribe again, then it won't be a simple slap on the face." Ha ha ha. After saying that, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Aggressive. Xiao Bai, who was watching in secret, wanted to rush out several times. If not for being held down by the elder swordsman, he would really rush out. This was called sparing him once. If Abbot Whitebrow wasn't crippled by this slap, he would have been severely injured. He could no longer continue refining. He was the second in command of the God's Design attic, and his skill in artifact forging was only second to the Grand Court. Other than the God's Design craftsman, he was the second strongest Grandmaster artificer. He was crippled by a single slap. He had to say it. God's tribe's method of coming up was extremely vicious and at the same time, very clever. He had slapped the God's Design attic's face and heavily injured one of his generals. All of this was for the artifact forging competition that was coming up, and he absolutely could not let the God's Design attic win. Too much. Mother *K, who dares to bully others like that? God's tribe, this old man will fight with you for the rest of his life. *CK. All of them were extremely angry. The elders of the God's Design attic had long scolded the 19 generations of the ancestors of the God's tribe in their hearts, but what could they do? Nothing can change. Her white brows was lifted up as blood continued to gush out from her cheeks. She endured the pain and said, "Senior brother, I'm fine." Presbyter of God's tribe was startled. "Oh wow, your skin is so thick, you're not dead yet?" Abbot Whitebrow's eyes narrowed. Grand Court said, "Junior brother, you can enter the pavilion to rest. There's me here, I'll call you out when I need you." Refining was about one's mental state. The flames of anger burned between Bai's eyebrows. In addition, he was seriously injured, so his refining level would be greatly reduced. Under these circumstances, it was simply unsuitable for refining. Bai said, "Senior brother, I can still." Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Grand Court said, "Bring second pavilion master back to the pavilion." Whitebrow said, "Senior brother, you must beat them." Grand Court let out a long breath, and said, "Elder, you can say what Emperor Xian said." Presbyter of God's tribe gave a cold laugh. Emperor Xian said that if you want to avoid suffering, you have to submit as soon as possible. He was only warning you just now. Otherwise. Grand Court said in a bland voice, our God's design attic does not belong to any power, nor will we submit to any power. Let's not talk about anything else. Let the refining begin. He didn't want to waste any more time with nonsense. He didn't want to waste any more time with nonsense. Right now, the Grand Court wanted to do one thing, and that was to fight. The battle for artifact forging. He used the battle to vent the anger in his heart. Let these people know what a God's design attic was. Presbyter of God's tribe's eyes turned sinister as his words became sinister. Grand Court, don't say that I didn't give you a chance. You'd better consider it again. It would be even better if the God's design attic submitted. This way, the God's tribe would have another dog, he could use it however he wanted. Moreover, this also greatly increased God's tribe's prestige. However, Grand Court did not have any intentions to think about it. Right now, it was already past the time of the sacrifice, and the faith in his heart had been tainted. Not only him, but the elder refining behind him was the same as well. All of them were filled with righteous indignation, wishing that they could immediately enter the competition. Humph, presbyter of God's tribe coldly snorted, all right, since Grand Court refuses to accept your offer, then we will decide your fate through this refining competition. Emperor Xian said it. If the God's design attic is unable to refine a divine weapon that our God's tribe is convinced of, and if the refining level of our God's tribe cannot even reach that of the divine weapon, then there is no need for the God's design attic to exist anymore. As soon as he finished, the weapon in the hands of the God's tribe guard trembled. Ha! Boom! A loud explosion resounded. The lances in their hands immediately bloomed like flowers as petals appeared on the tip of the lances. The faces of everyone present darkened. The annihilation spear. The holy artifact S that have destroyed the dimension. It's actually the realm of destruction spear. Sure enough, the God's tribe is here to destroy the God's design attic. Now God's design attic will have a hard time. The annihilation spear, as its name implied. It can destroy Secret World's holy artifact. There were a total of 18 of them, and Secret World couldn't even withstand the power of 18 of them. The most important thing was, these 18 annihilation spears were crafted by the God's design craftsman himself, and were also weapons he forged for the Emperor Xian. He never thought that he would actually bring them here. Use it on him? The entire audience was in an uproar. The space between Grand Court's eyebrows tightened. In the dark, Fu Shishan came back in a rush and said, God's tribe is about to destroy the entire God's design attic. It's not like they'll be finished just by killing a few people. They even brought the Annihilation Realm Spear. I think we should leave earlier. This time, God's tribe was determined to do it. There was no doubt that he wanted the God's design attic to be eternally doomed. He would definitely not let the God's design attic continue existing. If they continued to stay here, they would most likely die too. The senior Mie said solemnly, we cannot stay in this place for long. One annihilation spear is fine, but if we were to use 18 of them at a time, I'm afraid even if the God's design craftsman comes out, he won't be able to stop us. The elder swordsman also sighed. Who would have thought that the annihilation spear that the God's design craftsman forged himself would be used on himself? Xiaobai said, I don't want to go. Binghua continued, I don't want to leave either. Jianfeng said, if the God's design attic is gone, where can we hide? God's tribe has this kind of holy artifact which can destroy Secret World. How about we fight? Tang Long said with a heavy voice. Fight. Queen of Blood Moon also said lightly, fight. Lan Mai said, fight. Su Su said, I want to fight too. God's tribe is bullying others too much. Tan Depao said, if I die, I die. Even if I die, I have to drag someone from God's tribe down with me. For a time, his battle intent soared. They did not want to run anymore, nor did they want to hide. After being chased for a year and hiding for a year, this sort of life was truly boring. Rather than going on like this, it was better to have a good time. Elder Swordsman looked at all of them, his fists clenched tightly, and said, all right, then let's fight. Heh. The senior Mie was also smiling like he was ready to throw caution to the wind. Fu Shishan said, since that's the case, Then I will also go and prepare. Seems like Grand Court has made his choice. Heh. I'm a bit old, but I'm still a bit hot-blooded. Xiao Yaro Xiong gave a faint smile and said, "You're a bit stubborn. This is more fun. God's tribe." Heh. Murong Xiong's figure flashed and disappeared into the sky. Then, in an instant, he landed behind Li Yuanba. "Brother Yuan Ba, how is it? Have you found your boss and my nephew?" Li Yuanba tilted his head to look at Murong Xiong, shook his head, and said, "There's no sign of boss, so he probably hasn't hurried over." Murong Xiong said, "It couldn't really have been swallowed by the black hole, right?" Li Yuanba said firmly, "Don't worry, it's not strange for anyone to die in this world, but he will definitely not die. He's my boss, Li Yuanba's boss." He had never doubted it. He had always believed that Long Fei was still alive. But it hadn't appeared yet. Murong Xiong laughed. "I also trust that nephew of mine, although I have never seen him before, but I feel that he is able to turn the sky upside down. Hey. God's design attic has made her choice. I'm afraid that if we go head-to-head with the God's tribe, what thoughts do you have? What's the level of those two demon dwellers from ancient world?" Murong Xiong was most worried about the two demon dwellers. From the moment he appeared until now, he did not make a single sound. It was incredibly quiet. This was completely inconsistent with the demon dweller's personality. Either it wasn't the demon dwellers, or if it was, then the strength of these two demon dwellers was frighteningly high. Li Yuanba also shook his head. "I can't see it either, but the qi on his body is different from normal demon dwellers. He has the inheritance power of the ancient world." F***CK. Didn't they say that demon dwellers can't obtain the inheritance power? What's going on with these two? Murong Xiong's pupils tightened. Could it be the Emperor Shen's dog? What is he trying to do? Those evil beings were finally restrained by the seal. What is he planning to do now? Release them one by one? You want to open the void hole? You want those evil demons to slaughter ancient world and universal realm again? Murong Xiong said solemnly. Li Yuanba also frowned. He was also a little worried. If the void hole was opened again, this world would fall into an endless slaughter. There was no light, and blood flowed in rivers in all directions. Li Yuanba muttered in his heart, "Boss, where are you exactly? There's really not much time left." Murong Xiong said, "How confident are you in dealing with the demon dwellers?" Li Yuanba replied, "I don't know, maybe 50%. Murong Xiong muttered, "If you can open 50/50ths of it, then the other two King Kong should be enough to deal with one, right?" Li Yuanba's eyes narrowed, and said, "The other two Vaja? Who is it? Who came out of ancient world?" Murong Xiong laughed, "Sword Force King Kong, Yuling Guardian Warrior." Li Yuanba became excited, "Aoya, Holy Spirit." Murong Xiong smiled lightly, and said, "Amen, they are also in the dark." Inside God's design attic. Inside God's design attic. Quick, elixir, cure pill medicine. Bai Mai was carried into the God's design attic by someone else, but when she entered the God's design attic, her hands and feet became flustered. Several disciples hurried over, some of them took the pills, and some of them took the gauze. However, Whitebrow didn't care about that much. "Carry me to the top floor first." He wanted to keep an eye on the progress of the artifact forging ceremony. Long Fei leaned on the window and watched everything that happened in the plaza. He saw the white-browed blanket over the stage. Bai Mai also looked at Long Fei. However, with just that one glance, his eyes filled with rage, as if it was Long Fei who had harmed him. It was because Long Fei, his master, did not come. She had a bit of resentment towards Long Fei between her eyebrows. However, he didn't reveal much. He knew that this world blamed others, so he might as well ask himself why he wasn't strong enough. Only the weak would find a reason to blame others. Long Fei looked at his furious eyes. He had witnessed everything that had happened downstairs. There was no admiration in his eyes, but his heart was moved. Has it begun? Has it begun? Abbot Whitebrow did not care about the wounds on his face. Looking out the window at the plaza, At the grand court facing the tens of thousands of people, he clenched his fists tightly. It's all my fault. If I could suppress my temper a little, senior brother wouldn't be under so much pressure. A disciple walked up and said, "Second Pavilion Master, heal pill." Abbot Whitebrow took it and swallowed it. A few disciples beside him also quickly bandaged him up, just that. Whitebrows frowned but didn't let out any sound of pain as blood gushed out from the wound while he bandaged the wound. He stared at the gushing blood. The few disciples panicked more and more, and their tears almost came out. The level of the cure pill medicine is too low. No good pills. How could this be? Do you have any better pills? Hurry up and bring it over. A few of Second Pavilion Master's disciples cried. But the god's design attic was only refining and no one understood alchemy. There were basically no good cure pill medicine here, and the pills they gave to Whitebrow were all low-grade pills. His injuries were extremely severe, and this kind of pill was completely useless. Abbot Whitebrow said with a deep voice, "Why are you panicking? Bring me more pills." A disciple frantically poured out a bunch of pills from the bottle, and when Abbot Whitebrow took it, he gulped it down like he was eating sugar beans. He bit it until it made a cracking sound, chewed it, and then swallowed it in one gulp. Couldn't help but be at a loss for words when he saw this. Huff. Long Fei said lightly, "This kind of pellets grade is too low, it doesn't matter how much you eat." Her white brows glanced at Long Fei, and ignored him. One of the disciples by the side did not know of Long Fei's identity and said, "Do you have to say these words? Who doesn't know? However, what can you do without high-level pills?" Exactly. Everyone knows this, yet you are the one to say it. Originally, they were already angry and had nowhere to vent their anger on. Now that Long Fei had said this, they all started to vent. Abbot Whitebrow glared at them and shouted, "All of you, shut up. Cough, cough, cough." If he spoke too much, the wound would split open again and blood would immediately dye the gauze red. Black blood also leaked out of his mouth. Abbot Whitebrow's face paled. "Master, Martial Uncle, Master." A few disciples began to worry. Long Fei really could not watch any longer. He took out a pellet from his space ring and said, "Eat it." Her white brows raised as she looked at Long Fei, then looked at the pill in his hand. A disciple said with caution, "What pill?" Long Fei was too lazy to explain, and said, "You'll know once you eat it." The disciple continued, "What pill is this? Who the hell are you? Could you also be God's tribe's dog? Master, who is this kid? Exactly, what is a cultivation of warrior realm doing here? This is the artifact forging ceremony. Is he an artificer? Brat, what are you doing here?" Many disciples questioned. Long Fei turned a deaf ear to them and ignored them. He said lightly, "If you want to get well immediately, then eat it. If you don't, then pretend that I never said anything." Whitebrow looked at Long Fei seriously, and received the pill. "Master, we don't know his origins, so we can't eat randomly." "You're right, we didn't even find out this kid's identity." While they were talking, Abbot Whitebrow swallowed it. As the pill melted in his mouth, Abbot Whitebrow's pupils suddenly trembled. He abruptly shrunk his pupils. "Ah!" It let out a painful cry. The disciples around Long Fei immediately surrounded him. "What did you feed Master?" Long Fei still did not explain. Abbot Whitebrow covered his face with one hand. His entire body was shaking. Even when his face was cracked, he didn't feel such pain. But now, he cried out involuntarily from the pain. His temper was so fierce that he wouldn't scream no matter how painful he was. But right now, he couldn't control it at all. "Ah! Ah! What is it?" "This pill." Seeing how much pain his master was in, one of the disciples could no longer hold back and punched Long Fei. And at this moment, Abbot Whitebrow said with a heavy voice, "Stop." That person stopped and turned around to look at Abbot Whitebrow. "Teacher, he." Abbot Whitebrow stood up on his own. The bandages on his face fell off, and the torn flesh on his face completely recovered. There was even new flesh and blood, and even his bones had been repaired. In just a few seconds, all the injuries had healed. Abbot Whitebrow stroked his own face. The severe pain just now was due to the growth of his flesh and blood, which resulted in the sharp pain that came from the growth of his bones. It's all right now, it doesn't hurt at all. Seeing that Abbot Whitebrow's injuries had recovered, the disciples were stunned. Master, your injuries. What? Why is everything all right now? He was stupefied, but his face remained as blank as ever. Abbot Whitebrow walked in front of Long Fei and asked, "Who are you?" He could be considered as someone who had seen much of the world. Even though he didn't know much about pills, he had never seen such a miraculous pill. Long Fei smiled faintly, and said, "You should know very well who I am. God's design craftsman told you before." Sure. Abbot Whitebrow didn't continue speaking. He still couldn't say the words ancestor master. He only bowed and said, "Thank you. Thank you for your emphasis." However, Abbot Whitebrow spoke sincerely. Seeing Abbot Whitebrow bow in gratitude, the disciples beside him immediately let go of their concern and bowed as well. "Thank you." Long Fei laughed. It was not intentional. Bai Mai glanced out of the window and turned to leave. He wanted to help the senior brother. Long Fei said faintly, "I think it's best if you don't go down there. Take a look first, I'll deal with it later." Abbot Whitebrow thought of his own violent temper. Worried that he would cause trouble again, he said, "If I don't go down to help, senior brother alone will not be able to handle so many artificers." Long Fei said, "You won't be able to handle it even if you go down there. As your ancestor, how about I teach you a few moves?" "As your grandmaster, how about I use a few moves on you?" "As your grandmaster, how about I use a few moves on you?" The moment he said that, everyone stared at Long Fei with their eyes wide open. Originally, he had already put aside his concern for Long Fei, but after these words, what was this called? Calling himself grandmaster? Isn't this playing with swords in front of Guangong? Even a crazy person had to have some sense, right? To say such words to the top refining master in Universal Realm, this was not arrogance, this was a little blind arrogance. What was this called? Kid, do you know what you're saying? Don't think that just now when you took the pill to save my master, you could have gotten even more out of it. Whose ancestor are you? Is there something wrong with your head? You know how to forge equipment too? You are just a dregs of the warrior realm. To put it bluntly, can you afford to use a crafting hammer? Was extremely displeased with what Long Fei had just said. Bai Mai was actually very calm. Looking at Long Fei, she started to think about what her master had said. Long Fei said, "Your current refining level is at most at the same level as your senior brother, even if you go down. What can you do to help? You mainly cultivate refining. Where is your martial arts worth? How long can your spiritual energy last? If my guess is correct, the first step for God's tribe should be to take turns fighting. First, I will exhaust your refining pavilion's refiners to death one by one." The plaza was filled with the people of the God's tribe. Although the artificers brought by those hegemon-level sects could not compare to the artificers brought by the elders of the God's design attic, they were not much weaker than them either. If they were to exhaust themselves one by one, the artificers of the God's design attic would definitely not be able to withstand the consumption. In the end, the God's tribe's artificers came out. Even if they couldn't, there were still the two boss-level powerhouse God's design attic would definitely not be able to stop them. This way, it wouldn't help even if he had another white eyebrow. Abbot Whitebrow's brows tightened. "A war of attrition?" Long Fei said, "What do you think you can do to help?" The disciples all stared at Long Fei in displeasure, but Long Fei had completely ignored their words, causing them to be even more infuriated. Abbot Whitebrow exhaled deeply and asked, "What can you teach me?" Long Fei said, "I don't dare to say anything else, at least I can last until the end." A trace of light flashed across Abbot Whitebrow's eyes. "Really?" Long Fei replied, "Of course." Abbot Whitebrow said, "All right, teach me." Long Fei said, "For me to teach you, you must show some gratitude, right?" Abbot Whitebrow hesitated for a moment. Then, he knelt on one knee and said, "Martial ancestor, please instruct me. Very sincere." Each and every one of them looked at Long Fei in a daze, and were a little unable to react. Master, this. Him. Master, did you get it wrong? White-browed was a person who did not care about trifles. In the beginning, he did not place Long Fei in his eyes at all. Even though God's design craftsman had repeatedly said it, he still looked down on Long Fei and thought that he was useless. However, the pill Long Fei gave him calmed his heart down, and he calmed down to think again about what his master had said. If it was as master had said, then the kid in front of him must be unfathomable. This was also the reason why he asked for advice. And then again, this analysis was not bad. The reason why God's tribe came here this time was to deal with God's design attic. Their means were definitely despicable and shameless, and they would definitely do something. If it was a war of attrition, God's design attic would definitely not win. There was nothing he could do. Regardless of whether Long Fei had a way or not, he wanted to ask for help. Long Fei said, "Very good, let your disciples go out. Their realms are not enough, they are unable to cultivate my secret technique." Abbot Whitebrow gave the order, "Everyone, get down." Many disciples left unwillingly. Long Fei said faintly, "The refining techniques that I am going to pass down to you is the ancient alchemy. I will only say it once, how much you can comprehend will depend on you." Abbot Whitebrow was startled. Ancient alchemy? Ancient worlds refining techniques? He was overwhelmed with shock. As expected, Bai's forehead shook. He is indeed unfathomable. No wonder Master made him substitute for me. I really have eyes but can't recognize Mount Tai. His heart tightened and he became even more respectful to Long Fei. Long Fei said, "Yes, I remember. I also saw it clearly." Long Fei began to teach them. The ancient alchemy emphasized on the natural power of the natural Tao technique. It was a type of power within the ancient inheritance. He was ancient world's most primitive refining force. As long as they could grasp a bit of it, they wouldn't be able to deal with the two ancient bosses, and shouldn't have any problem dealing with the presbyter of God's tribe. Initially, Long Fei wanted to pass down the refining techniques to the Horcrux's family, but Abbot Whitebrow had not been able to comprehend it yet. It was also the one that Long Fei was most familiar with, and it was convenient for him to impart it to others. The rites of heavenly worship was gone. Grand Court only wanted to welcome them as soon as possible. Use the raging refining fire to extinguish the God's tribe's arrogant flames. Thus, very quickly, over 100 refining platform appeared on the plaza. The Grand Court said, "The annual artifact forging ceremony competition between God's design attic S will begin. Who can win to the end and become one of the 9 Grand Courtess of the God's design attic? I've obtained the divine fire of the heavenly secret. Everyone, please begin." Before he could finish his words, Presbyter of God's tribe unceremoniously interrupted him again. "Grand Court, we have to change the rules for this year's refining competition." Grand Court suppressed his anger and said, "Elder, how do you want to change that?" Presbyter of God's tribe said, "You should also know that these people are all from my God's tribe, without any other factions. In other words, this year's refining competition is between my God's design attic and my God's tribe. A one-on-one duel. If he wins, he can continue on. If he loses, he can take the next spot. Until there's no one else." It was just as Long Fei had guessed. God's tribe doesn't even want to use normal methods to win against you. It was a conspiracy. There were so many artificers in God's tribe, adding up to no more than 100 disciples. How many people from the God's tribe were on the plaza? Over 10,000 people. This was even worse than killing God's design attic in a battle of attrition. Grand Court's eyes darkened, and said, "Elder, I'm afraid this is not good, right?" Presbyter of God's tribe glared at him and said, "This is Emperor Shen's idea, do you dare say it's bad? Grand Court, don't give me a chance to go berserk. Otherwise, we don't need to have a competition in refining and we can directly settle it by force." Heh. He looked like he was about to completely devour God's design attic. Grand Court said, "Elder, this is too time-consuming." Presbyter of God's tribe replied, "It doesn't matter, since I'm not in a hurry to do anything, I have plenty of time to do it." Grand Court still wanted to explain. However, the Presbyter of God's tribe didn't even give him a chance, and said, "Grand Court, This is the world of the God's tribe. Either you follow my God's tribe's rules, or I will follow another kind of rules of my God's tribe. If it wasn't for Emperor Xian giving you guys some face, do you think you would still be able to stand here and talk to me? You won today. Everything will be fine. If you lose, hey, you know the outcome, ha ha ha. The sky was God's tribes. The sky was God's tribes. The ground was the God's tribes. Even the air was God's tribes. Call the God's tribe a rule? To challenge the God's tribe? I'm sorry, but we can either follow the rules of the God's tribe or just follow the methods of the God's tribe. The appearance of the God's tribe meant everything. Whatever I say is what I say. If you sing a different tune to me, I, your father, will go crazy. Who cares what kind of refining ceremony you are in? I'll just kill all of you God's design attic. Let's see how you're going to play with me. Grand Court was very clear on this point. If he wanted to save God's design attic today, the only way was to win. Victory to the end. Only by winning would the God's tribe have no reason to go berserk. However, this was an unfair competition. Want to win? It was too difficult. Forget about these tens of thousands of master artificers, even the two ancient worlds had crushed his head like two mountains, causing him to be unable to breathe. However, if he wanted to save God's design attic, he could only win. Grand Court endured it heavily, and said, all right, let's follow the rules that the elders have set for us. Elder, please begin. Presbyter of God's tribe smiled and said, let's begin. Fuck, isn't this too despicable? This way, God's design attic will really be forced to his death. There was originally a slight chance, but now it seems that there is no chance at all for God's design attic. I'm afraid even the refiners that God's tribe brought with him would not be able to make it out alive. The battle of attrition is so King sinister. God's tribe is really shameless. Xiao Bai and the others said angrily. The elder swordsman said, this way, most of the God's design attic's refiners will be exhausted. When the time comes, we will fight like vegetables being chopped from a radish, one at a time. Senior Mier asked, since when did God's tribe have such a group of sinister dogs? Xiao Bai looked at them and asked, what can we do? The elder swordsman shook his head, this is a refining competition, we do not understand refining. If we go out, it will only cause trouble for the God's design attic, and it will also cause the God's tribe to find excuses to go crazy. Sigh. Tan De Pao sighed, and said, if only Boss was here, he could refine anything. That's right. If only Boss was here. He's a top-notch expert in smithing. Boss, where are you? Achoo, choo. Damn, which chick is missing me? Long Fei sneezed 3 times in a row. He looked at every corner of the plaza and was disappointed. Li Yuanba did not appear. Xiao Bai and the others did not appear. Lan Mai, Su Su, they did not appear either. Long Fei muttered, where are you now? It can't be because no God's design token can enter, right? Long Fei was also secretly worried in his heart, but now was not the time to be worried about this. As long as they were alive, they could find it. Right now, the most important thing for him to do was to deal with God's tribe and protect him. He came here to rebuild the Sky Sword. Before God's design craftsman can recreate his Sky Sword, he must protect them. Despicable God's tribe dog, it really is a war of attrition. Abbot Whitebrow glanced outside the window and gave a fierce shout. Long Fei glanced at her white brows, and said, hurry up and cultivate, don't waste time. Abbot Whitebrow nodded repeatedly, yes, yes. Martial ancestor, I will go right now. Actually, to the presbyter of God's tribe's surprise, their battle of attrition was extremely beneficial to Long Fei. If the first explosion was like pulling apart rotten weeds, God's design attic would definitely not be able to handle it. However, the battle of attrition gave Long Fei enough time to train Abbot Whitebrow. Bai Mai was the peak refiner of the universal realm. His comprehension and aptitude both exceeded Long Fei's expectations, and his cultivation speed was extremely fast. He only had a little more time before he could advance. This was the accumulation of many years of artifact forging. It was just like how, in the past, he had only practiced the basics. Now that he had reached the advanced realm, he was naturally much faster. God's design attic wins. Next. God's design attic wins. Next. One after another, master refiners came forward to challenge the other. These master refiners from the hegemon level sects were not weak, and the master refiners of God's design attic would have to waste a lot of energy to deal with them. After several consecutive rounds, his physical and mental strength had reached the point where he was unable to endure even spirit energy. God's tribe wins. Next. Another elder of the God's design attic walked down, his head lowered in dejection as he looked at Grand Court and said, "Grand Court, I am useless. This method of theirs is simply too much." Grand Court comforted her, "It's fine, go to the side and rest." Refining spiritual power required a high degree of concentration. After a few rounds, his spirit power couldn't hold up any longer. It didn't matter if he lost. But this loss would cast a psychological shadow over every refiner, and the path of the refining process in the future would become even more difficult. God's design attic wins. Next. God's design attic wins. Next. A few presbyter of God's tribes were seated on their teachers' chairs, waving fan in their hands as they smiled proudly. They were not concerned about the results of the competition at all, as they knew what the final outcome would be. God's tribe wins. Next. Another presbyter of God's tribe was defeated, his face was pale and he gasped for breath. Presbyter of God's tribe mocked, "Grand Court, you are just like that as a master refiner. After a few rounds, you are already exhausted, like a piece of trash, ha ha ha." The elder glared at him furiously. "You." Presbyter of God's tribe sneered, and said, "What about you? You're still admitting to being a trash? Trash. Phut." He spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted on the spot. Every single refiner who entered the God's design attic was a genius refiner, and all of them were a little proud. It also had a huge impact on other weapons craftsmen. Grand Court's eyes darkened, and he said, "Maintain your heart." Presbyter of God's tribe sneered, and said, "Keep your guard up, hurry up and call your men over." God's design attic wins. God's design attic wins. God's tribe wins. Next. Every 10 rounds, there would be one elder from God's design attic who would lose. In this way, the God's design attic would lose without even needing to be an artificer. Moreover, every elder on the God's design attic side had done their best and had exhausted themselves. It would take them at least 3 days to recover. But 3 days was too long. After a full day, there were only 10 elders left on the side of the God's design attic. On the other side, the elders of the God's design attic were all panting heavily as they were unable to recover at all in a single day. But there were still more than half of the 10,000 refiners here. God's tribe wins. Next, presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly, and said, "Grand Court, send someone to compete with us." There were only a few pavilion masters left. He was also a master refiner at the peak of God's design attic. Grand Court's expression darkened. With a ball of fire burning in his heart, he said heavily, "I'll do it." The battle of attrition was too despicable. The battle of attrition was too despicable. However, you know you're despicable, but there's nothing you can do. The 100 over refiners in the God's design attic lost, not in terms of technique, but in terms of numbers. If 10,000 would not work, then 1,000,000,000,000 would die. Crippled or not. Every single refiner who had lost was exhausted mentally and physically, and they were gasping for breath on the side. It would take a very long time before they could recover. The pride of the presbyter of God's tribe. The faces of those weapons craftsmen of the sects were full of mockery. The anger in Grand Court could not take it anymore and he shouted, "Let me." Presbyter of God's tribe immediately said, "Good, good, good, this Grand Court is finally going to show his skills. I really want to wait and see, ha ha ha." He was waiting for the Grand Court to fight. Second Pavilion Master was already crippled. The remaining powers of these Pavilion Masters were all just average. At most, they were just slightly stronger than the artificers they brought with them, and wouldn't be a threat at all. Only the Grand Court. If they beat him to the ground, the God's design attic would definitely lose. It had to be known that there were still thousands of artifact forging masters behind him. No matter how powerful Grand Court was, it was impossible for him to win against so many people. Once he lost, there would be no God's design attic left in this world. He didn't even need to use the Destruction Realm Spear. Senior brother. Senior brother. Several pavilion masters took a step forward and said, Senior brother, let us fight first. Right, let's fight first. You will be the final one. We can't even deal with those blacksmiths from the God's tribe with much difficulty. If you are the last one, we will exhaust all of you no matter what. I'll do it. As he spoke, a pavilion master walked out. Presbyter of God's tribe sneered, and said, You said you can go up if you want to. Who do you think you are? Grand Court. You said you were going to fight. You wouldn't go back on your word, right? This is the sin of deceiving our God's tribe, the crime of deceiving the monarch. You know the consequences, right? Presbyter of God's tribe smiled faintly as he looked at Grand Court. He was just not going to let the Grand Court have a way out. He wanted to use the sea of men to crush him. So what if he was Universal Realm's #1 refiner? Is it worth 5,000 refining Chief Master S? You'll die from exhaustion. Grand Court took a step forward and said solemnly, Come. Walking up the refining platform. Grand Court said to his junior behind him, I will fight first, you guys support him, I believe in you. And then, Grand Court made a gesture to the refiners on the opposite refining platform, let's begin. The corner of Presbyter of God's tribe's mouth curled up, and he spoke with a tone like an old eunuch, let's begin. Boom. The refining fire on Grand Court's body instantly burst forth, igniting the flames in the furnace. With a flip of his hand, the artifact forging hammer in his hand struck out fiercely. Bang, bang, bang. A few seconds later, the refining fire on Grand Court's body extinguished and the fire died down. The entire audience was stunned. Presbyter of God's tribe's pupils also shrank as he stared at the pill refined by Grand Court. With the flickering of his eyes, he could tell that it was not an ordinary item. Inwardly, he was overwhelmed with shock. Refining a divine treasure in just a few seconds. How strong was this? The level of this refining techniques is simply unmanned. Isn't it too fast? The refiner opposite us has yet to even start a fire. Holy **T, is this still something a human can do? Impossible. It's too fast. Fuck, this isn't even human. I didn't even get a good look. Is this the level of the #1 blacksmith in Universal Realm? The entire audience was shocked. It was an incomparable shock. Grand Court's technique was too fast, he could not even see what Yun Che had just done. The artificer on the other side of the refining platform was even more dumbfounded. Just now when he had taken out his crafting hammer, the other side had agreed upon it. The mighty Grand Court! The mighty Grand Court! The elder from the God's Design attic shouted loudly, venting the anger in his heart. Godly speed refining technique. Senior brother is indeed a senior brother, to think that he actually grasped a refining techniques at lightning speed, ha ha ha. It's really powerful, the senior brother is truly mighty. Abbot Whitebrow glanced at the window. Incomparable excitement. Long Fei muttered, Godspeed refining technique? Whitebrow said, You didn't see it clearly just now, did you? This is the refining techniques that the senior brother created himself. In the past, the senior brother only wanted to save some time, but he never thought that it would actually have such a miraculous use today. It's really amazing. This kind of refining techniques used speed to decide everything. It all depended on speed. From the burning of the fire to the end of the refining process, everything had been completed in one go without the slightest pause in between. One quick. Long Fei said lightly, its speed is indeed fast, but this method of refining would probably require a lot more energy to complete, right? Abbot Whitebrow was stunned. I don't know about that. Long Fei glared at him and said, Since you don't know, then why don't you quickly go cultivate with me? Hurry up, you don't have much time left. If you keep on slacking off, you better be careful of my master's anger. Abbot Whitebrow retracted his neck, then immediately ran to another side to train. Long Fei looked out of the window with interest at the Grand Court, and muttered to himself, "Divine speed refining techniques. This skill is indeed not bad, it can save a lot of time. Let's see if I can control it." Long Fei's eyes moved. His pupils turned into flames. Eyes become the mode of the fiery eyes of truth. The power of the fiery eyes of truth could see through everything, as could its speed. If Grand Court were to once again use the fast refining method, he would be able to see every single movement clearly. Long Fei wanted to copy the refining techniques at lightning speed. Bring it on. Let's start again. Presbyter of God's tribe's eyes turned slightly sinister. God's tribe's limelight had been crushed by him, causing his expression to turn unhappy, but he was not anxious. He coldly said, "As expected of Grand Court, you are truly extraordinary." He actually managed to refine a divine treasure in such a short period of time. "Amazing, amazing." With a slight movement of his finger, he said, "Next one." A master refiner stepped onto the refining platform. Grand Court made the same polite gesture as before, "Please, let the duel begin." Grand Court made another series of beautiful movements. In one breath, bang, bang, bang. Completed. The flames of refinement on Grand Court's body extinguished and the aura on his body calmed down. Yet another godlike speed. Under the fiery eyes of truth, everything was being played slowly. This speed was too fast. Long Fei secretly thought, he really is fast. Even though he was using the fiery eyes of truth slowly, he was still unable to see everything clearly. He thought to himself, "I don't believe this." Presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly, and his finger spoke again in a feminine tone, "Nex. God's design attic wins. Nex. God's design attic wins. Nex. God's design attic wins. Nex." The wild victory that he had received along the way, and the crushing of everything, were all completely performed by the Grand Court alone. It was too fast. It was too fast. It was so fast that those refining masters from the sects lined up one by one, but just as they steadied themselves, they lost. They had no idea how they had lost. The Grand Court didn't even give them a chance. Each time was completed in one go. Every single time, a divine treasure would be created. Compared to that, it was like the Grand Court pressing you down on the ground and rubbing it with all his might. You couldn't even move at all. God's design attic wins. Nex. God's design attic wins. Nex. The sect's artificers kept on walking, and then kept on walking. They could only stand on the refining platform for a few seconds, and then lose. In just 2 short hours, more than 1,000 refiners had been defeated. 10 hours was more than enough time for 5,000 refiners. The most important thing was, Grand Court's breathing was stable, his face was not red, and his heartbeat did not accelerate. 2 hours of high-speed refining did not exhaust him at all, so it was not difficult to last 10 hours in this situation. Presbyter of God's tribe's gaze darkened. Although he was shocked, he also hated them even more. This was because the aura coming from Grand Court was simply too strong. The sect's artificers that he brought were simply like ants that had been completely crushed by the Grand Court's aura. Even if they could refine now, they wouldn't be able to produce anything good. Not only that, the artificers of the God's tribe were also being crushed by the aura of the Grand Court. This speed. This level was too strong. God's design attic wins. Nex. With another heavy sound, Presbyter of God's tribe clenched his fists tightly and said solemnly, "A bunch of useless trash." Everyone on the God's design attic was excited. Grand Court is indeed Grand Court. He really is amazing. This achievement probably won't lose to the God's design craftsman back then, right? Murong Xiong let out a faint sound. Looking at Grand Court's performance, he was also incomparably shocked in his heart. Li Yuanba said, "His consumption." Murong Xiong nodded and said, "You can tell? It looks like his breathing is stable, his breathing is flat, but his energy consumption is very serious. Although he uses a few seconds of time to recover every time, he is after all, just an artificer, not a martial arts training practitioner." A few seconds of recovery is nothing to him. Presbyter of God's tribe only sensed that Grand Court's aura was stable and thought that it did not cause any consumption, but if not, Grand Court's consumption would be extremely huge. After 2 hours, more than half of his profound chi had been consumed. There were still more than 4,000 blacksmiths who wanted to persevere. To him, this was an enormous test. Li Yuanba said, he probably wants to do it in one go, just that. I wonder how much longer he'll be able to last. Murong Xiong said faintly, it's good that I can persevere for a long time. What I'm worried about now is whether or not God's tribe can come up with some scheme. If their limelight was crushed like this, where would the face of the God's tribe go? Every one of the presbyter of God's tribes had an ugly expression on their face. Under the Grand Court's quick refining techniques, the people they brought were like idiots. They lined up one by one, and then lined up one by one. If he wasn't an idiot, then what was he? Where is the might of the God's tribe? What was the face of the God's tribe? If this matter were to be found out by the elders of the shrine, and the Emperor Xian found out, they would definitely be punished. A few presbyter of God's tribes looked at each other, then squinted. It was also at this time. God's design attic wins. Next. One of the presbyter of God's tribes slowly stood up and walked towards the refining platform. Everyone shivered. Is presbyter of God's tribe going to fight? Presbyter of God's tribe can't watch this any longer. Ha ha ha, presbyter of God's tribe is going to make his move. This time, I can directly kill his prestige. The numerous artificers were all suppressed to the point where they couldn't even breathe after being pressured by the Grand Court's divine speed forging method. They felt extremely uncomfortable. Seeing presbyter of God's tribe walk out, their hearts slightly relaxed. But the most puzzling thing was that this presbyter of God's tribe held a weapon in his hand and walked up to the refining platform. This weapon was not a hammer, so what was he trying to do? Everyone was puzzled. Grand Court said lightly, Elder, after you. Presbyter of God's tribe also sneered and said, please. Grand Court did not think too much about it. The refining platform was a place where weapons were refined. He had spent his entire life refining, and when he stood on the refining platform, he was a completely different person. With his 120,000 points of penetration, unless the refining was complete, he would not relax even a little. Such people were born to do only one thing. Moreover, when he was doing it, he was at the level of one with the world. He would ignore everything that was happening in the outside world. The refining fire on his body moved. He had once again entered into the realm of artifact forging. But, at this moment, one of the pavilion masters from the God's Design attic widened his eyes as he shouted, Grand Court, be careful. The weapon in the hands of the God's tribe's refiner smashed down heavily, and a huge power exploded out from the tip of the spear. Grand Court raised his eyes. Seeing that presbyter of God's tribe was going to fight, he wanted to be even faster and use this speed to ruthlessly crush presbyter of God's tribe. This time, he was even faster. However, he did not expect that the presbyter of God's tribe was not here to forge artifacts, but was instead here to take his life. He flipped the holy artifact that he had refined. Buzz. Protect in front of your body. The power from the powerhouse of God's tribe's weapon shot out, striking the holy artifact he was refining and producing an explosive sound. Rumble. Rumble. A violent explosion sounded. Grand Court was immediately blasted away. Bang. He heavily smashed onto the ground, causing the ground to crack. Grand Court's body bounced, as he spat out a mouthful of black blood. Everyone from God's Design attic rushed forward. Grand Court. Grand Court. Senior brother. God's tribe. Aren't you guys going too far? Their eyes were all filled with rage. That presbyter of God's tribe splayed his hands, made an innocent expression and said, refining failure, it was definitely a refining error. I don't want to be like this, but everyone has their own mistakes. You guys are all refiners, don't you guys have your own mistakes? A mistake? You call that a mistake? You attacked the Grand Court the moment you started. What kind of mistake is this? Is that what you call deliberately doing? The pavilion masters were infuriated. The presbyter of God's tribe immediately said, you should be careful with your words. How did I do that on purpose? If I say I made a mistake, then it's a mistake. At worst, I'll just lose this match. You aren't letting us make any mistakes. He had a complacent look on his face. The presbyter of God's tribe stood up, his face was filled with a cold smile, and he said, "There are mistakes, everyone. Grand Court has already won. Grand Court can stand up and continue. If he can't get up, then here's a replacement." Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The people of Presbyter of God's tribe and the sects all laughed loudly. He was laughing with incomparable joy. Fighting with the God's tribe. Do you know how to write the word die? These people who came to the God's Design Attic did not think that they could use normal methods to win against the God's Design Attic. These people who came to the God's Design Attic did not think that they could use normal methods to win against the God's Design Attic. They only wanted the result. The process didn't matter, anyway. With history in the hands of the powerhouse, what could the process do? This world was a place where the strong preyed on the weak, and the powerhouse was the king. Since you choose to fight with the God's tribe, then make all the preparations. God's tribe's actions made everyone in the God's Design Attic unhappy. Seeing that Grand Court was heavily injured, all of them gritted their teeth, wishing that they could pounce over and fight to the death. As long as the people of the God's Design Attic dared to make a move, then this refining competition would be spared. This was the result that the people of God's tribe wanted to see. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly and said, "What? All of them looked like they wanted to eat someone. You want to make a move against me? Come on. Come on, I'll sit here. Make your move. Hurry up and make your move." He had an expression that made one want to slap him a few times. A few bloodthirsty God's Design Attic disciples could not hold it in any longer. Grand Court crawled up heavily from the ground, and said with a deep voice, "Refining continue." He said in a low voice to the pavilion master beside him, "Let them not move recklessly. If they attack, we would not have any chance." While they were talking, step by step, he returned to the refining platform. It was just that. His face became very pale. The corners of the presbyter of God's tribe's mouth hooked up as he sneered, "You aren't even dead. Grand Court, your life is really tough." Grand Court said lightly, "Elder, continue." Presbyter of God's tribe's gaze turned sinister as he said in a heavy tone, "Continue. This old man wants to see how long you can hold out for." He once again returned to the refining competition. Those weapons craftsmen from the sects walked forward one by one. The refining fire on Grand Court surged. Boom. It was a little messy, not as smooth as it had been in the beginning. Moreover, his breathing was ragged. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed sinisterly. "I thought you weren't injured. Hey. I want to see just how long you can hold on. Just you wait till you die." Very difficult. Every step Grand Court took was now extremely difficult. But, even if it was even more difficult, he had to persevere and at the very least defeat these sect weapons craftsmen. Even if he lost, he had to lose with dignity, and lose so that the whole world would remember this place, and remember this place, God's Design Attic. This was what Grand Court wanted to do now. Fight for reputation. God's Design Attic wins. Next. God's Design Attic wins. Next. Another series of victories. Although Presbyter of God's tribe and the rest were unhappy, they all had gloomy expressions. They knew that Grand Court would definitely not be able to hold on for long. This is King bullying. Do these God's tribe dogs care about face? I'm ashamed of them all. I can't take it anymore. Xiao Bai and the others clenched their fists tightly, wanting to rush out and give that Presbyter of God's tribe a good beating. He had seen bullies, but he had never seen one. How infuriating. The elder swordsman said in a deep voice, even though the Grand Court used his holy artifact to block off some of the energy was God's tribe's power. The Grand Court's internal organs were shattered quite a bit. He is currently burning his own life force to block. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for long. Senior Mie said, "We should also make the arrangements." Xiao Bai took the lead and said, "I will kill the elder who spoke those words. I will definitely tear his mouth to shreds. Let's see what he will say in the future." Ice and Fire said, "The one I have." They knew that they might all die after this battle. However, he had to fight. What was the point of living like this? In this world, living is one thing. If you're unhappy, then living isn't that fun either. Who are you? They were ready. Prepare for battle. Murongxiong said slightly. Just as I expected, God's tribe dogs are God's tribe dogs. Dogs can't stop themselves from eating feces. They can even use such a despicable method. Looks like I still have to use force to settle everything. Heh. However, I like this method of resolving things. Li Yuanbar glanced at Qingyi, who was beside him. Qingyi chuckled lightly. I am your woman. Whatever you do, I will follow. You don't need to worry about me. She loved the big man in front of her. Deep love. No matter who Li Yuanbar wanted to deal with, she would stand by Li Yuanbar's side. Although the God's tribe raised her, she died because of him. This was the second time that someone she deeply loved had given her life after her revival. None of these people caused her to have any feelings for the God's tribe, so when she saw everything that happened in front of her, she saw the ugliness of the God's tribe. This way, she wouldn't have to worry about him anymore. Murongxiong smiled lightly, and said, I really envy the two of you. I need to hurry and find a woman, only then will I be able to be more eye-catching. All right. There's still some time left. You can do whatever you want to do, I'll arrange it for you. Murongxiong gave an evil expression and disappeared into the void. Qingyi's face reddened. Li Yuanbar said naively, What are you doing? Qingyi lightly leaned against Li Yuanbar's shoulder, and softly said, You can do anything you want. Li Yuanbar said, I don't want to do anything. Qingyi pouted, Big stupid cow. God's design attic wins. Next. God's design attic wins. Next. He was still winning, and his speed was even faster. An hour passed. Grand Court was still on refining platform, still winning. 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours passed. Grand Court was still holding on, but his chest was covered in the blood that was coming out of his mouth. His body was on the verge of collapse several times. However, he was still trying his best to persevere. The entire plaza became incomparably quiet, as everyone looked at Grand Court. Boom. God's design attic wins. Next. He had won another one, and at this time, he had already supported himself with exactly 10 novels in the refining platform. One man against thousands. Just how terrifying was this existence? Although those who lost didn't do anything on the stage, they were convinced. There were no complaints. He also secretly admired Grand Court in his heart. However, so what if he admired her? Grand Court was at most a formidable person, but in the end, she would still be eliminated, and in the end, the God's design attic would still be defeated. Grand Court stared at Presbyter of God's tribe and said, Clan Elder, continue. Presbyter of God's tribe's eyes became gloomy. He stood up and swept his eyes over the sect's artificers who had lost and coldly said, a bunch of useless things. Hugging his hands, his joints creaked loudly. He stepped forward. Walking to the front of refining platform, he stared at him and laughed sinisterly. Grand Court, let's begin. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.